welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed, and we have, oh my goodness, my input here. We had a banger stream last time. Yesterday was a banger stream. Fixed it. Has it been fixed? No, it hasn't. Okay, having a problem with my audio input here. Fixed. No. Okay, we're good. Banger stream yesterday. Yeah, covered a lot. We expanded the 5 stages of our soul. The map of the 5 stages that our soul goes through in our development. We expanded that out to include the negatives, which Socrates talked about. It might be worth jumping back into that section of the book and hearing Socrates describe his realization of these stages that he learned through his conversation with his teacher, Parmenides. Because Parmenides outlines all of these stages in great depth as a demonstration of the dialectic. So while dialectic is the structure of understanding, the structure of reality, the structure of intelligibility, it's also how we make use of intelligibility. It's the power of reasoning. It allows us to do things like think, understand, develop, prepare for spiritual experiences. Oh my goodness. But you could say one of the most important uses of the dialectic is to understand the soul's journey. We are souls. We are trying to understand. Everyone wants to understand. Everyone is blocked from understanding to some level. The only way we can surface those blocks is by seeking our highest goals. Thumbs up. The smaller goals will surface some smaller problems, but you won't surface everything you need to surface to remove the problems that you bring into your life with, and you also learn in childhood, unless you seek your excellence. So we need that map of the soul as a guide so we can surface our blocks. So we also climb that map through understanding. So understanding is required to understand the map. The map shows us that the mastery of understanding is the method of climbing, but also that understanding, the dialectic, has to be applied to those blocks that we surface. As the oracle says,
people don't logic their way into stupid positions. They stupid their way into stupid positions.
We didn't logic our way into our false beliefs that we carry about ourselves. It was something we developed in childhood and an aspect we carried from our previous reincarnations, causing our need to reincarnate here. So we can't logic our way out of it. So maybe you've had a conversation with someone and you're following reason and evidence, but it reaches a point when they all of a sudden start insulting you, or refuse to answer questions, or refuse to define their terms, or ignore what you're saying. This is a demonstration of a block to reasoning, a block to the logos. They can't reason any further. That's their block. Those are the 2 things we have to address as humans. Our development of reason and understanding, that's through the art of the dialectic, but also addressing the blocks that block that specific activity. I have a new light behind me as well. So, and again,
There's only 2 options at the end of an argument.
No, that's not the right one.
You're wrong.
No.
Hey, you can't say that to her. You show her some respect.
No, I will not.
Imagine people changing their position.
No, that's not the right one either.
That's anti-feminist in some way.
No, it's just true.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
So there you go. You can't reason yourself out of that position that you didn't reason yourself into. The false beliefs that we carry about ourselves from childhood is, of course, called the pathologos. And while we can't reason ourselves out of it, okay, just fixing my light behind me. We can use reasoning to trace that block. The state of mind that we're in when we have that block is our DeLorean or time machine through our history with that block to its origin scene, and then use the dialectic to readdress that scene under the guidance of a dialectician.
Funny and cool? Hey, leave some for the rest of us, man.
That's right, we're funny and cool. The dialectician guides you in that self-reflection to find the origin of your block, and that's how we solve problems in principle. You address the cause, the origin of your problems in the origin scene, freeing you from that block, allowing you to further pursue understanding or the dialectic. So, that journey can be mapped out in 5 stages. Those are the 5 positive hypotheses of Parmenides. So we're going to look at Socrates, his reaction to learning about this when he was young. But yesterday we asked the question, what about the negative hypotheses? What's the point of if that's sufficient to understand how we function in our problems or ignorance, our excellence or wisdom, and our ultimate goal, knowing the self, if that maps the human journey or the journey of any intelligent being who has evolved to the state of self-awareness and language, then why do we need these negative stages? And we saw something super interesting. We saw that while we can understand the cause of human problems as the 4th hypothesis, belief, and the 5th hypothesis, the activity of a belief. By the way, all these hypotheses are states of mind. You can move, they all exist, and you can move in and out of them. You're not just at one stage. The state of mind that you can be in. And in that state of mind, you function in a certain way, you think in a certain way, you either see or you project in a certain way, you have a certain idea of yourself, and you have certain feeling states. Some of them suck, some of them are cool.
Funny and cool? Hey, leave some for the rest of us, man.
You just said that, but yes, funny and cool. So while we can understand the 4th and 5th hypothesis as belief and that which opposes mind, materialism or atheism, we can expand. Now, first of all, it's not a problem necessarily. If you recognize problems are gifts, so long as you unpack their message through the dialectic and analogy. If you take the false ideas you carry about yourself, the conversation that you tell yourself to shut yourself down, you are a bad noodle, you are a small bean. If you take that literally, you are in a problem. It's not literal. That voice that diminishes yourself is not true. It just feels true. Therefore, it's a message about what you think is believable. What you think represents truth. The model of knowing, the model of excellence. You wouldn't listen to what some 4-year-old yells at you across a playground, but you might listen to your science teacher. One you think is knowable or has knowing, the other one doesn't. This voice that diminishes yourself, you must therefore accept as knowing. So therefore we can see that the 4th hypothesis, let's move this extra stuff out of the way a little bit. Move it over here. Because it makes it look a bit messy. Let's clean it up a little bit. Okay, there we go. There we go. There's our map. It is getting a bit messy, but That just means we're learning heaps. So, while okay, let's just have a quick review of this map here. We have the 3 dimensions of reality. We have self, mind, and the physical world of appearances. Everything is in a state of becoming, whereas in mind, it's in a state of being. Therefore, eternal being, we can represent those principles as gods. They exist eternally. The forces and aspects of the realm of mind. The physical world, of course, is the world of becoming and appearances. That's where we find ourselves in. And if we accept the hero's journey, we can go on a development through and even experience the gods or experience mind itself. The gods are, of course, a metaphor or a myth, a personification of the forces to help us remember them and talk about them. But even they must have a cause. That's the self. Or God. Singular. So, in the physical realm, there's a way of perceiving it as a whole and perceiving it through parts, or model and the activity. The feeling that you just know, I just know Mormon Jesus is real, belief. Your activity based on your belief, image thinking. So most people are motivated by shapes and colors. By the way, that's not only what it does, it's a certain way of thinking that says there is no connection to mind or self. There is only shapes and colors. If there was something higher, I wouldn't be thinking with shapes and colors. I'd be thinking with reason, intelligence, mind, self, higher principles and axioms. Belief is in violent opposition to understanding and mind, because if you understand something, why would you have to believe someone else? So isn't that interesting? A kind of fake ousia, or a fake whole or knowingness called belief, and a kind of harmful or primitive or savage, because it's a way of being that we developed from our evolution as cavemen. Anything different to my family tribe and my cave and tribe leader is bad and scary, might stop you from getting eaten by saber-toothed tigers. So it's a kind of problem, that a kind of solution to a problem that no longer applies, just like we face in our family. As children, we face tyrants. You don't vote your parents out. You can't just wander down and live with another family. The parents get to play king priest, tyrants. Our job is to challenge our false beliefs that are a pseudo-ousia, and if ousia is mind's capacity to know itself, that we experience in actual knowing, it's an imitation of knowing. Our job is to sacrifice that and learn. But that requires courage, character, maybe having met a philosopher in your life, perhaps on the stream, and not running from them. Instead of doing that, people would rather pretend. I should be in charge. I know shit. Fuck off. You don't. You don't know. Knowing is the second hypothesis. It requires work. Study, reflection, self-reflection, personal development, seeking excellence. Have you done this? Nope. But you know what? Your children don't know that. It's the appearance of knowing. And it's the potential threat. If I challenge my family way of being, when they seem so adamant that what I was doing, thinking for myself, which they saw as a threat to the family way of being, if they're so angry or adamant with what I was doing, imagine how much worse it would be if I asked them questions about their reaction. So in a similar way to our cavemen past, our personal false beliefs we pick up about ourselves to save the image of our parental figures and maintain our physical safety within the house, clan, is a kind of solution to a problem that doesn't apply once you're out of the house. So it's not a blame game. It's an understanding game. So that's the nature of human problems. A false belief we carry. Now, it's only a belief when you are identified with it.
No, you're not. Personality maxing requires you to look inward on a deeper level, and it's harder to fix because then you have to make fundamental changes to who you are as a person. And it's because it feels like a much more core component of themselves that they don't want to change. Like, it's like, well, then if I change this, who am
Who am I? So, if necessary to human development, we start and we pick up in early childhood a image thinking, shapes and colors. If your family were all Jews and they said the shape and color of a Palestinian person is evil and we must genocide them, that's how you think. And of course, there are many Israeli Zionists, or 80% of the population in Israel, who think that way. It's all wrong, prejudice, harmful, but that's how we start. The next step is to realize that our image thinking, which is an activity, is based on a model that we are carrying that we don't even know we carry. Those are our beliefs. So here we have the cognitive functions, belief and image thinking, how it's described, a fake ousia, a fake knowingness, and a fake logos, a shallow logos. We have enough reasoning and language to play the role as a good genocider, as a good Christian, as a good Mormon with your magic underpants doing your soaking.
Some goons and some gooners and some weirdos.
Being a gooner and a weirdo for your religion.
Goon, 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 goon.
Goon, 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 goon.
You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now?
Hey, calm down, Emma.
Okay, that sounds stupid.
All right. Pseudo-logos, a shallow amount of language and reasoning, enough to, so we call it a zombie virus. Brains, where are the brains? That's some language. That's some reasoning. There's a very shallow pool. Primitive and savage, again from our caveman roots. So that's if we only think in terms of shapes and colors and unquestioned beliefs from childhood. Our job is to awaken from the physical world, awaken the mind. That's our purpose. Right? You can't believe your way into fixing any problem at all, ever. Whether it be a problem with a computer, you can't believe your computer better. A problem with an illness, you can't believe your spleen better. Or a problem with humanity and the soul. As much as politicians and religious people want to convince you otherwise, you can't believe your soul into heaven. You can't believe humanity out of the horrors of capitalism and conservatism. You can't just vote another believer and say, well, I believe something different. Oh, never ever works. But by definition, we see that belief is an allegiance to an image opposing evidence and reason, particularly if it threatens that belief. So our purpose, therefore, is to recognize that our problems are caused by image thinking, which have it as its cause belief, and our purpose is to move from belief into understanding. That's what we do here. That's why we read. We read books of understanding, because understanding is the actual logos. So complete books that reflect the logos, so we call them intelligible, written by, well, Socrates, Pierre Grimes, and Homer. And that's about the whole list. That's about as far as we have. And whatever book you write as a sequel to this book, of course. Why is that? Because very few people have done the work on mastering the logos and using that dialectic, which is the art, to purify their false beliefs. Takes friends, takes a community, takes a teacher. That's what we're trying to do here. So understanding, therefore, gives you the art needed to purify your problems caused by image thinking and belief, or the stage, fourth and fifth hypothesis, the model and activity, or the whole and part of the physical world of appearances, which is itself a copy of the model which exists in mind. So the model of intelligibility, the model of creation, can be experienced as a whole in the realm of mind. That's what yoga is for, or meditation is for, or drugs, or dance, or all sorts of ways. Near-death experiences are all attempts to separate our soul or our mind from our physical senses to experience mind itself. That experiencing of mind itself has a name. It's ousia. Sounds funny, but we need a name for it. That's what it is. As you reflect on that experience, you recognize it's understandable. As is experienced as a oneness up on the board there in the blue, you can recognize through intellectual reflection, dialectic, ideally, or just talking about it, you recognize that it wasn't a dead thing. It was alive. So it has a quality. It wasn't a part, but it was an aspect. It was alive. It wasn't boring. It was interesting. You recognized yourself. Oh my goodness. It had vitality. It wasn't, dead. Had a vitality, had a life, had an intelligence, had a recognition. It was beautiful. It was experienced as bliss. So those are how it felt, but you could even intellectually distinguish it was a whole of parts. There we have whole and part. The things that we needed for this very map exist somewhere. The fact that we can understand this means that understandability, or the logos, has to come from somewhere. It's in that experience, in that second hypothesis. How do we break this down into understanding? Whole and part. It was the whole of all parts. It was whole itself and parts itself. We're distinguishing same and different. The same model and activity in different levels. Where the hell does same and different come from? In other words, all of the things we're using in thinking, in understanding, have their own existence in the second hypothesis. Therefore, while it's the object of knowing, it's also the model of understanding. Because that's what we use. That's where it all comes from. And the greater we therefore participate in mind itself, or the second hypothesis, knowing in the Greek nous, the more intelligent we are. And the better we perfect the art we're here to master, understanding. The more you reflect on the model, the better your activity becomes. So, to remind us what the oracle says.
People don't logic their way into stupid positions. They stupid their way into stupid positions.
You can't logic your way out of your stupid position or your false belief and problematic image thinking. Fourth and fifth hypothesis, that is the definition of ignorance. But you can use understanding to reflect on the origin of that belief. That's called philosophical midwifery. That addresses our pathologos, our sick reasoning. That's one of the uses of understanding. The other use of understanding is to perfect the logos. So there it is, purifying what's false, perfecting what's true. Third hypothesis, applied to the paradigm of the second, the model, is what we're doing now. That's this. And it's also the spiritual method, the spiritual yoga. Because this kind of focused reflection and understanding and sharing with our friends over coffee, cheers, is the preparation for your mind to be open for that insightful experience, called the brilliant light of being. That's a peak experience. It's also the penultimate enlightenment experience. It's a funny word, penultimate. There's one more use of understanding. You could use understanding not just to understand that experience, to get into it further, to integrate it in greater depth, to understand it as the model of justice and beauty, but to reflect on even its cause. So everything, all of the sacrifice and courage and character and temperance and wisdom and reading and patience needed to, and bravery to sacrifice your old images, needed to go from ignorance to wisdom, you apply all that again to do the double jump, to go from wisdom to an even higher level, its cause. From the physical world to mind, from mind to the self. From the copy to the model, to the source, to the principle that allows for model and copy to exist. The cause of all causes, the axiom of all axioms, the principle of principle, or in the book, awareness of awareness itself. Sight seeing itself. Therefore, it's not sight seeing mind. It's not sight seeing physical things. It's the principle and the original seeing itself. If knowing that paradigm is called nous, or knowing with a capital K, if its activity is called dianoia, or understanding with a capital U, if its fake diminished copy is belief and image thinking, what the heck is the kind of cognitive function when you know even beyond knowing? That's one of the questions we have. That's why it's 2 question marks. To carry a question is to be on a quest.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm just asking for some gooner men.
You're a gooner man, Harry.
Gooners.
Goodness.
Well, that's not true because I don't think so.
It is true.
What the hell kind of a show is this? What is this, the comedy mothership?
That's right. We are being a bit funny right then with the sound drops. So what is it like to know the self is our big question. And of course our goal, to know the self. Know thyself. Our ultimate goal, what all intelligent beings will eventually wake up to. First, you'll be motivated by shapes and colors. Ooh, shiny. Ooh, pretty. Ooh, let's get money to get the pretty cars. Let's exploit people to get the pretty women through enslaving them or impoverishing them, says the Epstein class, the billionaires, and the capitalists and the religious. But eventually, hang on a second, who am I? Yeah, those shapes and colors, or where do those shapes and colors come from? Why do I find that shape beautiful? Why do I find that color attractive? Why am I repulsed by that one? That's the movement from shapes and colors to mind. The cause, the principles, the axioms, the cause of those physical things. And then, of course, you have to ask the question, oh, that's interesting. There is an intelligence that creates the principles and forces of our physical world, but what the heck caused it? Or what's experiencing even mind? So eventually, if you are rational and mature, you'll have to ask the question, what is me? What's watching? Can't be my physical body. That comes and goes with appearances in the world of becoming. It can't even be pure intelligence because that's being seen by something. That's the hero's journey. Knowing the self, if there is a oneness, a truth, and a goodness in the model of mind, there has to be its cause. The cause of goodness, the good. The cause of oneness, one. The cause of truth, true. So the one, the good, or the true self. So one, so it's God. That's the hero's journey. So our question was, why do we need these negative hypotheses? If that's sufficient to understand our purpose, our excellence, the art we're here to master, the cause of human problems, all of them, and the cause of human excellence, as well as our highest purpose. How do we escape fate and find our highest destiny? The ultimate purpose for all intelligent beings and all humans. Why add the negatives? So we looked at these negative hypotheses. Each of these are defined by a worldview. Well, each of these are a worldview defined by an opposition to any one of those positive hypotheses. For instance, the fifth hypothesis, there might be some sort of divine, but we are disconnected from it because we can only be parts in the physical world. Ninth hypothesis is a nihilist who says there aren't even parts. Or, to use model and activity, there is no meaningful activity. We call them doomers or black-pilled or nihilists. Some people say it's a loser mentality for losers. Given up. So each of these positive things that we defined, we can create another worldview in opposition to it. So our job yesterday was to understand them better. Because Socrates says if you understand any of these stages, which you can be in a doomer state of mind and have all those feelings. I'm not good enough. I'll never do anything. It's not worth it. I give up. But if you understand that position, whenever you find yourself in it, you can free yourself from it. Is the claim Socrates made. And we're going to read that in a minute. So we want to look at how do we understand them. As we've been reading, we've been seeing that this journey through these 5 hypotheses to the self, which is climbing the self-logos ladder, is half of the journey, because it's not just a matter of knowing truth, there's also the human side of it. Human beings who have these false beliefs, therefore have human problems. Our false beliefs are a powerful force, perhaps the most powerful force in the universe, because you can even have a wisdom experience, but your false beliefs will be more powerful, and eventually you'll go back to your problems. That's the archetype of the drunken master, the pervy sage, that we see in anime all the time. And ancient Eastern literature, of course. Or, for the Westerners, the priest who has scandals. He may be spiritual, but he still has his problems. And our problems are expressed as our opposition to our development through understanding. Just as we can understand our development, we can understand our opposition, and we have to do both. Those we call the 5 classes of interpretation. When we come across a new idea or a new insight, a new way of thinking, that's true. Our first response is to reject it. That's the 5. And Jesus says, hey, when you reject it, what you're also doing is injecting your pathologos. So it's where your pathologos is most strong. I don't think that already. I'm a Joneses, and we Joneses are Mormons, and we do magic underpants.
Gooner.
As a gooner.
Some goons and some gooners and some weirdos.
And we're some weirdos, so anything different I'm going to ignore. 4th level of interpretation is when you're not completely ignoring, but you're offering your own beliefs. Oh yeah, okay, we should make the world a better place, but we should all be Mormons with magic underpants, worshipping American Jesus. This applies to all religions. I'm just using Mormon because they're an obvious, crazy, batshit people. I mean, all religions are false in principle because they're all the veneration of belief and our opposition to understanding. Same thing with conservatism. But it's easier to understand with one that has magic underpants and says you can't have sex, but you can do soaking.
Some goons and some gooners and some weirdos.
Goon, 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 goon.
Goon, 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 goon.
I'm just asking for some goon.
Queen of gooning.
That's insane. Like, you need help. There's no help, actually. You need a straitjacket.
There we go. So, fifth level of interpretation, ignoring. Fourth, offering your own alternative beliefs. Third, taking a piece of the new as a kind of patch on your cloak of your old beliefs. The second, taking the new but trying to unify it with the old. And then our goal is the first level of interpretation, which stands above the other levels because it's not interpretation. It is to accept the new and reject the old. We go through that as humans. It's important to recognize. It's not just a matter of being right. It's about helping other people move through, and yourself, move through the development of seeing that true thing. If it was just a matter of knowing the truth, we wouldn't be in the facing Armageddon as a species, allowing conservatives, religion, and capitalists to exist. Because Socrates already told us this. We already have the Parmenides. So we have to also recognize there's the human element of going through these 5 levels of interpretation. Now, how do we act out these individual levels? When we reject it, how do we reject someone telling us the truth? When we're only offering our own our beliefs, how do we dismiss the things that we are offering our beliefs in place of? When we're only taking a piece, what do we do to the rest of it? And someone's saying, you can't just take a piece. You can't just use the dialectic to do religion. When we try and unify the both together, what do we do about the parts that say, no, beliefs are a problem? No, but can't we do beliefs as well as understanding? Can't we allow some religions, the ones that I think are similar to what I grew up with? What are you going to do to this extra part that shows, well, actually, why? If beliefs harm people, why do we want people to be harmed? Because you're used to it? Stockholm syndrome? So the way in which human beings, and by the way, this also is important for us as philosophers, because Socrates pointed out, the further you go through these 5 stages of development, the more you master understanding and integrate that mastering of understanding, the more that you trigger other people. Because human problems, or what makes humans better and worse, is our level of mastery of understanding. And as you know, the worst people do terrible fucking things. What we are doing is understanding what makes them worse. It is a lack of understanding and an allegiance to belief. That's it. Being lower down on the map. The more you understand we are all the same one self, participating at our level of development into the oneness of mind, and principles of understanding are universal, and to benefit you, your relationship, our planet, our society, our city, is to apply universal principles universally. Universal healthcare, universal housing, universal wealth equality, universal income. It's very, very easy. Just as you can universally fix an engine. Doesn't matter what country you're from, or what color your skin is, or what sex you are, you can be a mechanic because understanding is universal to human minds, or to intelligence, to minds. Recognizing our universal purpose, nature, and understanding means you can act with kindness and benefit, and also recognize the sameness, empathy. You get a good head and a good heart. The people who are cruel have a bad heart, and they're also idiots. They are the most fervently loyal to their beliefs. Oh, I should think we should send immigrants to concentration camps. I think we should genocide Palestinians. Why? My religion, my politician, my family. That's what makes bad people bad. And if we are defining the nature of that ignorance as opposition to our excellence, wisdom, or understanding, then the further you have developed wisdom or understanding, the more you are going to trigger the ire from the stupid. And now we're understanding why. So important for us to recognize. But we want to still help people. Make the world a better place. Make our relationships better. Help our loved ones improve ourselves in spite of our own human problems, and even recognize there is a purpose to humanity and it's worth saving from extinction and Armageddon. In other words, we have to find a way of dealing with this. So, first of all, it's recognizing that there is a map. We're not just saying my beliefs are better than your beliefs. We're saying understanding is true, universal, open to everyone, and we don't want you to believe anything we're saying. We want to help you understand it for yourself, and the third hypothesis, and confirm what you understand in direct experience, second, and use the two of them together to know the self. That's our purpose. Ain't belief, ain't opinion, ain't debate. Debate is for babies. Debate is for idiots.
Debate dweeb.
So that's the first thing, recognizing the 5 stages of development, but also recognizing the 5 stages of interpreting. The human stages through time of integrating that truth. And as we fight back against the truth, we have to recognize, again, 5 basic categories of how humans respond negatively, violently, oppressively to truth and those communicating truth. Someone says something, say you're in you're in stage 5 and you're moving into stage 4. You're learning about how there is a whole that you've been opposed to in the physical world. Problems as a whole, excellence as a whole. You've been opposed to that. But you're learning. You start to learn about it and you start by 5 interpretation, ignoring it, rejecting it. No, they can't. There's no such thing. 4. In fact, I'm going to offer my beliefs instead. 3. Okay, I'm taking a piece of it. But what about those other pieces? What do you mean? Oh, I'm going to ignore that. You can't ignore, you can't just take a piece of what I'm saying. Let's give an example. Women have rights. Okay, let's introduce that into Christian. We've been treating women as cattle and to justify slavery and oppression. That's all it is. Whether you saying immigrants are evil or the Palestinians are evil or not everyone can be rich, all you're doing is finding a way of justifying tyranny. The billionaires get to tell the children in Epstein Island what to do. The Jews get to tell the Palestinians what to do and feel big and strong. The capitalists get to have slave labor, wage slaves, because housing isn't for everyone. It's just for the wealthy. All it is just finding an excuse to inflict the same injustice the parents inflicted on the child by having a childlike race. The evil blacks, the evil immigrants, the evil women, the evil criminals, the evil, and that's the word evil. The evil is used to dehumanize human beings and say their problems isn't that we are ignorant fuckheads trying to put a group of people into a class where we can abuse them. No, it's them. Their brains are smaller, says Elon Musk about brown people on Twitch. On Twitter. They're just innately bad. The Palestinians are just animals. It's not us, it's them. That's the nature of the game. That's the nature of human oppression and violence. It's a way of subjugating and finding the conditions to enact the tyranny, because it's a belief-based image of what it means to be knowing that they haven't reflected on. So you're telling someone that and they'll ignore it. Then they'll mock you. You think you can understand human problems? Who do you think you are? Take your meds, bro. Now notice, ignorant catchphrases. There's no intelligence in there. There's no argument. It's, oh, you're woke or you're a lib. Nonsense catchphrases. Threaten. You better not say that or else the ICE will get you. The Jews will assassinate you if you speak up against the genocide. The capitalists will throw you on the street if you speak out against your boss. You'll go to hell if you speak out against the whatever I want you to do, says the priest abusing the members. Exile. Get out of here. You don't like America? You can get out. Can't go to Sunday picnic if you don't believe in Jesus. Or Mormon Jesus or whatever, or gooning.
I'm just asking for
Queen of gooning.
Just asking for the Queen of Gooning.
be a reasonable gooner.
Please end kink shaming on your show.
Sorry, I'll stop kink shaming the Mormons with their soaking. Finally, killing. So when fascists have power, what do? Murder union leaders, murder intellectuals, murder journalists. What have the Jewish state been doing in the genocide? They've murdered more journalists than any other conflict in human history, in recorded history. Just murdering people who are telling the truth, a truth that they cannot integrate yet because of their allegiance to their ignorance. So, 5 stages of interpretation, 5 kinds of ways of responding negatively to truth and those speaking it. How does that help us understand these 5 negative hypotheses? Well, if these 5 stages are 5 stages that have to exist, if there is a reason for our birth on this planet, and necessarily we pick up false beliefs, 4th hypothesis, and image thinking, 5th, that opposes our development, opposes our benefit, opposes our goodness, and causes the problems we face in our life. If there is a reason for that, and the universe isn't just sick or torturing us, it must be to highlight a false belief about ourself, first hypothesis, that puts us into certain states of mind, second hypothesis, that causes certain activity, not the ideal activity, third hypothesis, understanding, but shitty activity. In other words, if the ideal self can be seen as a triad or threesome, the self as your ruling term or what exists, or your fullest flowering, hypoxis, the power coming from the model or state of mind, the paradigm, and the activity, if this is a fundamental triad in metaphysics, everything has to have some sort of existence, some sort of power, and some sort of activity that it uses its power for. Then our false beliefs, 4th hypothesis, is an imitation. You're carrying a false belief about yourself, we call the pathologos, that allows for certain states of mind and ways of being that are acceptable within the family tribe, caveman bullshit, and a certain activity or role within the family that plays out your fate. So while our highest purpose is we can call the destiny of man, we call our problems fate. Which means, why would we be reincarnated into a level or a stage of development and a planet through time that requires us to address our false beliefs about self, our pathologos, and develop that third hypothesis, mastery of the logos, necessarily to remove our problems that prevented our spiritual development through higher kinds of reincarnation? Why do we go down to 80s? where our world is ruled by the most unjust and cruel. To learn that. To purify what we're carrying in our soul that's false, to learn that mastery of the Logos so that we can remove what's false, perfect our excellence, and use it to go on that higher spiritual journey to meet Socrates where he is the one self. Which may not be the end, but that's our goal. It is a kind of end. Meaning these positive hypotheses aren't problems in and of themselves. They're only a problem if you take the stage literally. If you take the second hypothesis, experience of the one self knowing itself through ousia, so participating in being, to reflect upon itself ousia, to know itself as the peak experience. If you think that is the self, you are taking that experience of self literally. You're looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, that mirror reflection is me. It's the reflection of self. By the way, that's Taoism and certain kinds of Buddhism. They think as that's the greatest experience possible, that must be enlightenment. They're taking their position literally. So too for belief. If you recognize the beliefs and images you have about yourself are not really yourself, because yourself is the cause of all of those things at a much higher level and is what's seeing them, then you would never take your beliefs about yourself, your images, your negative self-talk literally. And if you recognize third hypothesis, providence, a communication to you between each gap in physical time, the frame by frame movement of physical time, you'll recognize that those non-literal messages are to help you. Therefore, you recognize our fourth hypothesis, belief, and our fifth hypothesis, image thinking, shapes and colors, being trapped into a role like an idiot who only thinks in shapes and colors. Oh, you're a girl. I'm an incel. Or Donald Trump is good because of red. He wears red and I'm team red. You have that to some degree. But that's fine. You're supposed to. When it's not a blame game, you're supposed to discover your problems so you can engage in philosophical midwifery, third hypothesis, dialectic, to surface the hidden beliefs behind it, to purify your soul, and so that you can learn that art yourself. So it's not a block. If you are taking it literally, we call that human problems or the pathologos. If our journey is through these 5 stages, then a pathologos has to be some opposition to any one of these stages. I can't go beyond where I'm at. There is no fifth hypothesis that we have to recognize and learn from. Or maybe there is, but there's no fourth hypothesis. There's no coming together into a beneficial group, not a religious group, a beneficial group like a dialectic talk or a midwife talk. There's no meaningful activities with groups. By the way, that's the 8th hypothesis, a rejection of the fourth. Or maybe there is some things you can do feel greater than yourself as a part of a group, but it shouldn't be based on third hypothesis, the logos or understanding. The best team is to pick Team Jesus or Team Muhammad or Team Saints against Team Evil, Team Zionist, Team Capitalist, and try and win the competition. Get all of the monies, drop all of the bombs, get all of the market share, make all of the profits. and win at the expense of 99.9% of people losing. That's our current world. Religious, us against the evils. Capitalists, us against, we want to have 100% of the wealth and completely exploit human beings who are in poverty. Conservatives, we want to own the libs. We want to hurt everyone in America under our governance. That's the seventh hypothesis in opposition to the third. So the worst kinds of people that exist. So what are we looking at? Well, while some beliefs you can move through with the introduction of new evidence and reason, your prejudice beliefs against, I don't know, immigrants, once you leave your small town and you talk to people who are not the same color as your family, you might realize, oh, with new evidence and new reasoning, I can change my beliefs. That's growth. Human problems are an allegiance to a certain belief. So all of these positions we are describing that are in opposition to a stage of reality could function as a belief that blocks your development. So as a belief, you're tied to fourth hypothesis, ignorance, causing your negative activity, opposing your own benefit. That's fifth hypothesis. So while we can understand human ignorance and problems and savagery and opposition to our own benefit as fourth and fifth, that's why people who vote against their benefit, like Trumpers, vote for being murdered and shot and having all of their social services taken away so the billionaires can buy more ballrooms and murder more children for fun and profit, either in Palestine or in Iran or in Epstein Island or wherever they like to murder people for fun and profit. Those people who vote against their own interests are believers. That's why Trump tries to appeal to Christians, even though he's said that he hates Christianity and it's stupid. Why Netanyahu tries to say, I speak for all of the Jews. Bull fucking shit you do. And anyone who challenges me challenges all Jews. You can't, if you say I'm doing anything ever wrong, then you are breaking the commandments. You are anti-Semitism. Pope, I am infallible. If you say I do anything wrong, then you are evil or a heretic. Fourth hypothesis, belief. Better people try and introduce third hypothesis, understanding, but if you're stuck, you are unable to listen or grow or evolve. So the kinds of fourth hypothesis belief you are stuck in and fifth hypothesis activity of responding to shapes and colors and not reasoning, image thinking, shapes and colors in opposition to your own benefit and mind and the survival of our species, the kinds of ignorance, fourth and fifth, we can represent as the negatives. What are you opposing? Are you opposing anything at all? Any parts in the physical world? Are you opposing any parts existing in the physical world? Are you opposing any meaningful activity? Then you're in the ninth. That can be a pathologos fourth. That can be an opposition to growth fifth. Maybe you say, okay, there are physical things in the universe, but that's all there is. Materialism. And anything higher or any kind of greater whole that we perceive in the physical world, like beauty, is just chemicals firing in your brain. That's all love is, really. It's just endorphins. And all a Rembrandt painting is $5 of paint on a $10 canvas. That's all. That's called reductionism. That's an opposition. That's the eighth hypothesis. What else exists as a whole? Beauty? Excellence? So materialists and reductionists, do they give up on their higher goals? Do they reach for excellence what they do? Or are they happy just, making a living? Or maybe just making profits? Accumulating all the physical stuff? Or the Bugattis? And notice, these are states of mind. You can move in and out of them. You can feel doomerish, or you can be it's just the physical world. I'm going to meet my physical pleasures and that's it. These are states of mind we move through as humans and as all intelligent beings. Wherever we are, whenever we are. So we can be opposed to the idea of actual benefit. Is there an excellence of humanity that we want our politicians to have a grasp of so we can create the excellence of our society? Politicians say no. Democrats say no. Yeah, it's just all opinion. Who gives a shit? It's just all physical stuff. Maybe we'll meet some housing needs, but really we're just allowing capitalists to get all the physical stuff because it's winning. Or blow up the physical stuff. Yeah, it's cool. What are the right-wingers saying about the genocide and the war? Cool bombs, bro. Stuff being blowed up. Eighth hypothesis. How can we use what we just explained about interpretation and the way human beings respond negatively to truth and those sharing it? Hang on a second. Do they fit? Ninth hypothesis, which is a negative. How does that relate to interpretations, which are negative, and our negative functioning towards humans and truth, which are negatives? In the ninth hypothesis, nihilism, there is no meaningful parts or activity, it's all delusion. Do you have to ignore even your own point? Ignore the fact that you have this idea? Your position that there is no truth or reality, is that a true position? Are you saying it? For you to say it, does that mean that there has to be principles that exist in some way for language, for reasoning? If you had a conversation with another person, is that two parts, two things? If it was fun, does it even challenge your doomer state of mind? By the way, we've seen in the text as well, often these people require another person, ideally a philosopher, because that conversation might be the first time they've ever met someone who wasn't trying to scam them, abuse them, manipulate them. They weren't belief-based. And then in that conversation, you might be able to say, hey, did that challenge your beliefs? Were we two different people? So even that was a part. Was it a fun activity? So that idea that there are no parts or no activities or meaningful activities, you just experience something that shows that it isn't true. Now, of course, they'll go through the stages of interpretation. They'll reject that, or they'll offer an alternative solution, or they'll only take a piece of that, or they'll try and keep both until eventually they'll reach the first and go, yeah, you're right. And they'll be free of that position. So, is that a rejection of everything? Fifth interpretation? Is it an ignoring of everything and certain things they're even doing? Does that help us understand the ninth hypothesis? Materialists. What do they say to people who say that there is a whole in the physical world? There are meaningful activities you can do, and there is a whole of excellence, and there is even problems can be even understood as a whole. What do materialists say to that? Do they, fourth interpretation, do they offer their own beliefs similar to the fourth hypothesis? Nah, you say that, but I'm going to mock that. You idiots think that there's an excellence. Yeah, good one, Gandhi. Don't you realize that's just your brain tricking you with chemistry? Don't you realize your dream is just neurons firing, you idiot? Ha 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 ha. They're not completely ignoring you. They're not taking it rationally. They're not addressing it rationally. They're just mocking. By the way, is that a sort of belief about the world just being physical stuff that they're offering as an alternative that they're strictly holding to? Does it help us shine a light on the eighth hypothesis? Seventh hypothesis. This is the most dangerous. They're all dangerous, but this is the most dangerous one. Because it's an opposition to the very thing we are here to master, the very thing that solves problems, the dialectic and logos. The very things that reach as our excellence, dialectic and logos. Reaches our purpose, logos, dialectic. What's the third level of interpretation? Taking a piece. What's the third level of negative reaction? Threaten. When you're threatening someone, are you taking a little bit of what they're saying on board, enough to get triggered, enough to get angry about it? If you take this piece, no, if you look at it as a whole, you'll see it's actually good. No. I don't care about the whole. I'm just looking at this piece which threatens my worldview in good and evil, in Mormon Jesus and Gooning.
Gooner.
With soaking.
Gooners.
Gooners.
Gooners. Some goons and some gooners and some weirdos.
Damn, you really are a gooner.
A kind of threat, kind of taking a piece. What do they take a piece in the seventh hypothesis? They take a piece of the logos. Enough for their pathologos. What's their piece of the logos? Well, they're still in mind, meaning they still think there is some sort of force or principle that governs the world. So they're taking a piece, third interpretation. But what's the force? Well, it's defined by a rejection of the logos. So everything we've been learning about the logos on the board right here, hierarchical levels, a meaning, a purpose, providential guidance from self through mind, which is a paradigm. The force is ignorance, which is low, and our excellence and wisdom, and our reaching the self. That's all rejected. So what are the forces? Because you're still taking a piece. Third level of interpretation. Third level of negative response, threaten. So what are the forces that govern the world? Two, not hierarchical, equal and opposite. So relativism. It's all relative to your own opinion. Hey, conservatives' opinions are equal and opposite to progressives. No, one is fucked, one is good. They're not equal, they're not opposite, they're not equal at all. I think it is, because I'm a seventh hypothesis person. I think there is such a thing as ideas or reason, but they're equal, they're opposite, and they are threatening each other. You can't have one. If it's Republicans and Democrats, the Republicans have to make ice and kill all the Democrats and shoot them in the street and put them in the concentration camps they're building. Is what's happening now. One force is a threat to the other. God and Satan. No meaning, because you're always in conflict. The fundamental forces of the world are always threatening. They're always in conflict. So you always be in conflict with yourself. There's no meaningful development in the world. Just watch the world burn and kill enough of the other team and get a kick out of it. And what are they seeking? Extinction of our species through Armageddon. Because how do you solve problems? Oh, easy. The Logos. Third hypothesis. Understanding. The art we're all here to master. That solves our human problems and even brings us from survival to flourishing. Easy, easy. Oh, and it makes the world better. And we can meet all of our human needs together in harmony, in a fun way. Little to no need for work anymore. Free species. Finding our purpose within ourselves and within our human species itself. Easy, easy, and fun. And a win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
I don't think that because I'm opposed to that view. I find that view a threat. I think the only way of solving problems is there isn't a way. Unless we blow up the world and Jesus comes back in Armageddon. Because the world is a fundamental battleground between the forces of the good guys and the bad guys, the saints and the sinners, the devil and Jesus. Literally, these people are in charge, making seventh hypothesis a kind of, if you're attached to it, remember it's a state of mind you can move through. Do you beat up your problems all the time? You might feel that way some part of the day. But if you are stuck there, as your fourth and fifth hypothesis, ignorance or pathologos, of the kinds of pathologos, the seventh is the most common in our current age. It's also the most violent and dangerous. Because if you're on the good team against the bad team, you feel justified. God wants you to kill all the Palestinians. Jesus wants you to blow up the world in Armageddon. Jesus says the Bible says you can have women as cattle or slaves and abuse them in whatever way you want. You can have non-Christians as slaves. You can genocide other people because God tells you to. So you do the most horrific, irrational, harmful things while feeling justified about it because seventh hypothesis. Threatening yourself, threatening your soul, threatening even our species, taking a piece of reason into the cloak of your old beliefs. Enough reason to make nuclear weapons to end the world. That's what we're in. That's the most dangerous of the kinds of fourth hypothesis pathologos. This is the worst. Not only because it's the most violent and dangerous, it's the most blocking to being able to solve problems because problems are solved with understanding. These are the ones that kill the journalists, that burn the schools, ended the academy in Greece, burnt the libraries, want to defund education, want to make the world stupid through AI, constant surveillance states. That's the seventh hypothesis. No talking, no reasoning, no thinking. Just do as you're told while we rape and murder and abuse your children on Epstein Island, or in war in Palestine, in Israel, in concentration camps with ICE, so on and so on and so on and so on. That's the most common. That's the kind of... Our world is currently ruled by fourth hypothesis believers. The opposition party are fifth hypothesis Democrat, claiming to be left-wing, but fifth hypothesis opposes any understanding, so they don't fight back. Libertarians, there are no principles, you just let them do it. Oh, I guess so. So we are ruled by fourth hypothesis pathologos, but the kind is the worst, seventh hypothesis. Be it everything is all relative. So there are opinions or reasoning, it's just relative opinions. So there's no truth. That's the Democrats. Or our team against your team. Capitalists against the people. Christians against the Muslims. Jews against the Palestinians. Devil against, or God against the devil. So, That's the most dangerous version. So what are we seeing? These negative hypotheses are kinds of pathologos, kinds of false beliefs you can identify with. So a philosopher still has false beliefs from childhood, but they're not attached to it. They still have problems, fifth hypothesis. The difference is they approach the 5 stages always through the logos. We look for problems, fifth. We engage in midwifery and dream analysis to find our beliefs, fourth, through the dialectic. We master that dialectic and understanding in that activity, third, and in our reading. We make ourselves receptive to the second hypothesis, penultimate spiritual experience, and the paradigm of reality. And we want to go through that to know the self. When you're stuck or identified or character maxed,
No, you're not. Personality maxing requires you to look inward on a deeper level, and it's harder to fix.
Because then you have to make fundamental changes to who you are as a person.
And it's because it feels like a much more core component of themselves that
They don't want to change. Like, it's like, if I change this, who am I?
so when you've identified your character with it, then it becomes a pathologos. Then it's a problem. It goes from a gift to a problem, or a puzzle to an issue, to a block. So what seems to be is, if you can go through these 5, if there's a reason for each 5, they necessarily have to exist. For there to be a self, it would want to, if it's perfect, it would have to generate in some way, allowing itself to know itself as mind. And if mind is the perfect creation, it itself has to create a copy. So necessarily, for the one self, we are learning that necessarily, for there to be a self, there has to be a creation model, mind, wisdom. That also has to generate the physical world, which is appearances and copy. So too, that has to be expressed in our cognitive development, as wisdom is the second and third hypothesis, knowing and understanding. So too, it has its imitation or physical world copy in ignorance, providing the conditions for learning, addressing our ignorance, addressing our false beliefs. So those necessarily have to exist. And our purpose is to play, move through them with fun. Therefore, if that's our purpose, our problem has to oppose any one of these. Therefore, we have a set of possible pathologos. Which one are you opposing? We've just defined the worst and the most common in our current age, the 7th hypothesis. Therefore, while the positive hypothesis are under the rulership, the captain of the team, the self-logos or first hypothesis, we can add in a missing 10th hypothesis that is in opposition to it. So while our goal is to master the first, it has to come. You can't do that if you are carrying a pathologos. Any pathologos idea of yourself functions in opposition to the first, as all of the other ones function in opposition to the fourth, the fifth, fourth, third, and second. So we've added to the Parmenides, as the book has told us to do, by creating, and we've got spam in chat.
Oh, that's slop. I hate to have to tell you this. That was fake. That was AI.
AI man in chat.
It's sad. And I'm sad for you.
The pathologos self is the rulership. So we've gained an understanding of the negative hypotheses as the kind of expression of the different pathologos we can have. And we're gaining extra clarity or extra insight into them by using analogy for our and other kinds of negatives, our interpretations, and our negative responses to truth and human beings who share it. So, threatening. One more to go. The 6th, which is the top of the list. That means anything. Okay, back. I don't know why my cough button keeps... Anyway. So. Is that all? Suspicious username says, hey. And then I said, how's it going? And then she says to me,
Can't you just engage with anything in a way that's like meaningful ever? It's just boring, I think, is the problem.
She says that I'm boring. All right. Holy fuck, what was that? The button on my pen is changing the scenes on the... That's crazy. That's insane. I'm gonna have to reinstall some plugins on my OBS. I pressed the button on my pen that changes it from writing to erasing, and it changed the scene on my OBS. Fucking crazy. All right, there's another twist. I do it compulsively as well, because to make sure I'm not erasing things. Okay, so sixth hypothesis. Can we do the same thing? Can we apply second level of interpretation, which is trying to keep your old beliefs but unify them with the new, which is a kind of reflection of the second hypothesis, which is a union of not pathologos and logos, but union of whole and part, same and other, same and different, self and other, one and many, all of the primary duads of the self-logos. What does the sixth hypothesis try and do? Well, we're in the level of mind, so we're okay with mind. We are dealing with wholes. We're okay with there being things in the physical world. We're okay with there being holes in the physical world, so there is some kind of problems that we can address as a whole. There is some kind of excellence we can reach as a whole, or beauty or justice that's worth pursuing. And we do so through the logos. We're not opposed to the logos, like seventh hypothesis, us versus them, devil's punishment, sin, evil, devil, murder. All of these things are justified by seventh hypothesis, exploitation, slavery. That's because they're the other team and we can't be successful unless they suffer. The sickness of competition, capitalism. We have to have competition. Why the fuck are we competing with each other? That's fucked. You don't win by having 1,000 houses if you can win in one. Competition is fucked. Oh, but innovation, wrong. That's a lie. It doesn't help innovation at all. The only innovations that are allowed are ones that allow for exploitation and murder of people for profit. It's a sickness. It's the most dangerous one. So we're not opposed to the logos or reasoning. So that's good. Therefore, as far as if these are all kinds of pathologos or oppositions to the logos, the negative hypotheses, as far as pathologos goes, it's the best because it allows for reason. It allows for principles. So these are the sorts of people that we see who are progressives. They try to look for the cause of problems instead of just exploiting problems to further justify murder and capitalist, religious, conservative exploitation. They're actually trying to solve the conditions and preconditions, solve the causes. They're seeking principles. They don't like. So while the Republicans are okay with hypocrisy. Yes, Trump should rape and murder children, but not the left. Yes, we should bomb children in Iran, but not in my town. Hypocrisy, which is irrational and savage. They're okay with that. Yes, religion. We can kill the non-Christians or the non-Jews or the non-Mormons. That's fine. In fact, that's what makes us children of Abraham, says the book that we're reading. The best people of the kinds which have pathologos are sixth hypothesis because they're okay with principles. They're opposed to hypocrisy. They don't want competition if we all have the same universal human needs. They want to help address the principles. They recognize that most crime is just people trying to meet their material conditions. And crime is really created on purpose by oppressors to justify oppression. Oh, really? You have to steal to pay rent? Huh. Oh, you're a criminal. Now I can use you for slave labor. But didn't you scam billions of dollars from the economy? Not us. We made a mistake. Sorry. But we get to abuse now. The genocide in Palestine. Oh, we created and supported and funded a boogeyman called Hamas, and we allowed them to murder some people so we could justify genocide, oppression. Same thing with 9/11. Same thing with the when all of these imperialist countries trying to start a war, they create a problem to justify the reaction as punishment. And the idea of justice is, well, we have to kill all of the innocent people over there because of justice. Seventh hypothesis, it's us versus them, and we can only create a good world by murdering people. So that's the most dangerous seventh hypothesis. And the few people who are of a better class of pathologos, again, it's states of mind. You can move in and out of these. Sixth hypothesis, because they're okay with third. They're okay with what we're here to master. There's a way out there's a way out for everyone. Because even in our ignorant pathologos, there is a shallow pool of logos and a shallow pool of self-reflection that exists to maintain your problem and your fate. Therefore, anyone in a pathologos, which is every human being who's ever been born, necessarily the method for development is philosophical midwifery and dream analysis, because it makes use of those shallow forms of ousia and logos, because ousia and logos is the method. Even if you're blocked from reading, you can talk about your blocks. Even if you'd rather watch Hassan Piker and Asmongold than this channel, we can talk about why you'd rather. And it's not because of me, because I am
Cookie maxing.
And
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
And you would scoop the moon in the cup for me. Because
My head is quite large and filled with secrets.
Cool as a cuke.
and I'm also cool as a kook. And if you don't think so,
Goon.
then you're a gooner.
They're like a goon. They're a gooner.
They're a gooner. So, these six hypotheses are usually the people who are the best, because they are not opposed to third. They allow for principles. They allow for reason. They like reason and evidence. They look for causes. But they still have a pathologos, because they haven't done midwifery yet. It's the best out of all of them. Now, what we've also seen is Socrates saying, I'm going to read that today, any of these positions if you understand it sufficiently, you have the potential to move into the thing that it rejects and move out of this position you were in. Meaning, not only are these the best kinds of people who are who can do most good because they're not opposed to the third, and they're going to be most receptive to true philosophy and the reason they're alive, but if they understand their position, they may be able to move into an enlightenment experience. Because their block is, hey, I think there should be a world harmony. I think there should be a whole that we come to in mind that we should base our reasoning on, so whole and part or model and activity, only it doesn't exist. There isn't a realm of existence beyond the physical world that is that whole that should be our standard. There is no standard of justice or truth or beauty beyond our furthest imagination of it. So those are the isms. Socialism, Marxism. Yes, way, way, way better than Nazism and capitalism. But how far does it go? Because unless you're pointing to a true, universal, verifiable paradigm, they could say, well, that's just your view against mine. Yeah, you want socialism, you want to care for the social needs of every human being? Well, I'm a capitalism. I want to kill people for profit. I want to be the only one winning because I hate people. And that's your opinion against my opinion. And you know what? I have all the capital. I have all the nuclear weapons. I have all the means of communication. So I'm going to win. Fuck you. That's our current world. That's how we treat the best people in our species so far, currently. But if we say, no, it's not my opinion, dude. It is the true universal paradigm of truth and justice that our cosmos follows, that the physical universe follows, that human society follows, and the human soul follows. Well, the human soul follows and therefore needs to be our standard to establish the rules and principles and policies of our society so that our souls live in harmony with reality and not opposing reality itself. And anyone who goes through the work can understand it because it's not an opinion and it's open to everyone. That makes all the difference. Remember earlier in the text, go back to the text, when, what's going on here? When we looked at what's the standard for truth? If believers, when they are in charge, will sweep death and destruction across the world, how do we save humanity from such tragic consequences? Higher principles is what I'm looking for. Okay, higher truth. Here we go. Hey, you're back. Hey, Sus, how's it going?
My head is quite large and filled with secrets.
Is your head large and full with secrets? I hope so. Share those secrets with me.
If you don't know, now you know.
So I can now know. Right, so what we've got here, finished CNA, so medical assistant next. Hooray! Congratulations.
Do a poggers.
Do a poggers. You're making a garden.
The T-virus will transform me into an epic creation.
Your garden and your carrots and spinach will transform you into an epic creation. Just like the T-virus. I guarantee it. America is looking rough. Well, we are doing our best to communicate the root cause of the problems in America and humanity right now. Hopefully one day people will listen, but we are getting there, doing our best. Plant trade and plant sharing.
It's awesome and it's gangster.
That's gangster. So the pull to oppose the new. I wish there was a community garden. See, these are good ideas, but how will that make profit for the shareholders? Your strawberries are making berries. That's great. The pull to oppose the logos, and resist change is a fundamental conservative impulse, as looking forward to meaningful change is an opposite movement. So there's our true political party, true progression. Following the logos and letting go of the old. It's not for profit, says it. Capitalism daddy hates this one trick of sharing with my fellow human beings out of compassion. Yes. And to that capitalism daddy we say...
Dumbass.
Dumbass.
Well, that's not true because I fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
That's what we say to them. Bitch, pussy ass fucker.
Whoa, 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 lady, shut up, please.
Don't tell a lady to shut up.
You have the brain of a child.
Brain of a child. The issue between these forces of conservatism to conserve our pathologos and progression to progress along the logos, even to reach that paradigm of justice that we talked about in the second hypothesis, hinges on whether the proposals of each benefit the growth and development of the soul. There's our standard. When it can be demonstrated that only one is true and reflects a higher truth, that's what we're after. The higher truth is the second hypothesis. The issue becomes critical. Leopards ate my face party is sad at the reality of their decisions. And to them we say,
dude, suck my dick.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Spicy.
Goon, 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 goon.
Gooning. I miss you. I wish I could have tuned in during clinicals. You should have put it on the small TV in the top corner of the room at the hospital. That way everybody can enjoy.
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
See? Wait. So we have to demonstrate that it's true and reflects a higher truth. The struggle over truth becomes necessary to say which of these comes closest to revealing and making intelligible the truth of the ideas being contested. Through reasoning through words. That's the reasoning that sixth hypothesis people can access because they're not opposed to reasoning. That's why they're the best of us. They were old dementia patients with memory problems, and one thought the government was after him and was very racist. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Okay, that sounds stupid.
That sounds stupid. I think grandma would have just been like, is this my grandson? He's smoking. Smoking? Like this? Would they say...
Everybody should love sluts. I love sluts.
Is that something they would say? Reasoning through words and appealing to the kind of experience that comes along with an encounter with intelligence. Notice two things, third and second hypothesis. For us to solve the problems that we're talking about in chat, the problems of Armageddon being ushered in by the capitalist Epstein class, the conservatives and the clergy, or seventh hypothesis, pathologos, opposed to reason. Fourth hypothesis, attached to the fourth hypothesis. So they're in the fourth, they're ruled by the fourth hypothesis belief. That's the pathologos. Their flavor in the negative hypotheses is the third. They're opposed to the logos. They're opposed to, therefore, goodness, hierarchical development, providence, dialectic, needed to solve problems. Sorry, always have to drop a subtle flirt. Well, you're the only one who talks to me, so you can flirt as much as you want. And if you flirt, I will say...
If you don't know, now you know.
No, that's a dumb one. I'll say...
Can I do my plugs now? I'm trying to do comedy career.
No, no plugs. I will say...
Jester goon maxed.
Okay, I will say that I'm just a goon maxing. That doesn't really fit.
Gooners.
Gooners. Keep it within boundaries. Yeah, you're always imposing boundaries on yourself.
Goon, 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 goon.
And I'm just saying goon.
You can be a gooner.
You can be a gooner.
Gooner.
Gooner. I've got a gooner button on my soundboard.
I'm just asking for some gooner men.
I'm just asking for some gooner men. So, seventh hypothesis is opposed to all that. However, for those of us who have Gaga Goon, professional simp, and incel.
Gooners.
Goon, 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 goon.
Goon, goon, goon.
Goon, goon, goon,
Goon, goon, goon, goon, goon, goon.
goon. For those of us who haven't yet started to participate in dream analysis and midwifery, you are going to be blocked at some level. That's what the pathologos means. So there is a level of fourth hypothesis, but sixth hypothesis people are not opposed to people who are more often in the state of mind of the sixth hypothesis, are open to reason, are open to principles, are open to addressing causes and preconditions, are the sorts of people who say we should be meeting everybody's universal basic needs, recognizing the cause of crime and injustice isn't that people are evil. That's a bullshit ignorance of seventh hypothesis people. It's actually that their material conditions aren't met. What do you know? They are the best of us. They are the Emmas of the world.
Spit on me.
Come on, Emma. I was hoping for a good drop, and that's what you gave me.
Goon, 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 goon.
Emma, you're all about gooning.
Making ice cream's a good and courageous thing.
There we go. That's better. So, and perhaps more open to the logos, more open to philosophy. So these are the people I have had more success talking to. These are the people who are more likely to listen to me as a philosopher for a long time. However, it's not just a matter of third hypothesis reasoning. We have to understand the paradigm of intelligence itself so that we can verify indirect experience appealing to intelligence itself, the true universal objective model for beauty and justice. So these seventh hypothesis people who say, well, that's just your opinion, we say, no, it's not a fucking opinion. It's a real experience of the paradigm of reality. And our job as an evolving species is to apprehend that paradigm and harmonize our society, soul, and life by harmonizing our laws and policies with the universal paradigm. Where do you think beauty lives? Where do you think justice lives? Where do you think whole and part, same and different, like and unlike live? In someone's head as an opinion, or in reality? That's the next step for sixth hypothesis people. That also opens them up to realize it's not just about helping people in the physical world, overcoming the horrors of capitalism, religion, and conservatism, Nazism. It's for your own soul's psychic development. It can open up these best of us, sixth hypothesis problem people, to the spiritual life, to philosophy, so that their love of understanding, which is the third hypothesis, can evolve or level up into true understanding or dianoia, which is about the second. Becoming more intelligent, becoming more rational, and they can be open to therefore mastering their intended purpose. Yesterday we were talking about how Emma...
That one's perfect and exactly the case.
Thank you, Emma. Emma was on CNN, and while she was saying third hypothesis things that were true about an illegal offensive war in Iran, about a terrible genocide that all of American taxpayers are paying for, the billionaire Epstein class that are under the thumb of the Israel lobby. All of these things were true, and talking about it would help everyone in the country and planet. The fuckheads that were seated around them around her on CNN threatened her, spoke over her, silenced her. They were going through their human stages of ignoring, mocking, threatening, exiling, and killing in whatever way they would get away with it. So they couldn't actually murder her, but they could shout over her. On that channel, we saw it. We saw that knowing the truth about what she was talking about isn't enough. There is an art to communicating it to human beings, truth and humanness. That art is the dialectic. Emma, of that best kind of person, sixth hypothesis problem person, needs to learn the dialectic. She is the sort of person who may be open to it. Of course, they got to do work on their fucking Twitch and YouTube channels because their moderators are seventh hypothesis Nazis, which is ironic considering they speak out against Nazism. Fascists, not Nazis, fascists. I don't agree with that person. Look at the power I have to silence someone above me, says the Twitch and YouTube moderators. They're fuckheads. They should be addressed. But if they were able to address them and they did pay some attention to their chat, Emma could wake up to her purpose in existence, and maybe even because of her being of the best kind of person, be receptive to learning the dialectic so she can manage those dialogues properly, communicate truth, not be shouted over, not be abused by those fuckheads who are less than her. Not all human beings are at the same level of development. Emma is better than everyone else on that panel. That's why she's on the soundboard.
Spit on me.
Come on, Emma.
Goon, 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 goon,
It's all
goon,
gooning.
goon.
Gooning with you, Emma. Come on, you let me down.
Goon, goon, goon.
Just gooning, Emma.
Goon,
Come on,
goon,
Emma.
goon, 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 goon.
Okay. But the issue is, of course, the dialectic is the mastery of the self-logos. The self-logos has its existence in the second hypothesis. It's a non-physical level of being or intelligence. She's opposed, sixth hypothesis people are opposed to that idea. Because they have to be at some level of opposition to the 5 stages of the logos. And again, not always. States of mind you can move in and out of. So, you're not going to be able to solve problems, and you're not going to be able to communicate whatever you do see about truth unless you master the third hypothesis. You won't be able to do that unless you move from the sixth into the second, or from the sixth into the fifth. So there's 2 kinds of movement. Well, there seems to be, this is the cube, by the way. There is a cube which takes those positions of the hypotheses and puts them in groups of 4 on a cube like this. And it's a way of imagining different personality types, again, states of mind, the 4 most common that you have, but also highlights certain movements that are possible. Socrates said in the book we're reading, there is a possible movement for someone in the 6th to have an enlightenment experience, to wake them up to a higher purpose. It's not just the physical world. It's not just a battle between the evils of capitalism and conservatism and religion against the benefit of socialism, understanding, universal principles, harmony and well-being. It's a spiritual journey for you as an individual at this part of history, at this part of time, in this part of the cosmos, in this dimension of reality. That's the most important thing. But that realization that there's a higher level of a higher dimension of reality beyond the physical comes with a glimpse into the second. In fact, the glimpse into the second is what the ox herding picture says is the start of the spiritual journey. The first two ox herding pictures are levels of ignorance, but the third is the glimpse of the ox. Then the catching of the ox, then the taming of the ox, then the riding of the ox. That's 3, 4, 5, 6. Then the, what was it? Glimpse of the ox, catching the ox, taming the ox, riding the ox. Seventh ox herding picture is... Can't remember. The 8th is... Oh, Jesus, how long has it been? All right, pause. All right, I got the ox herding pictures up on a different page. The bull transcended astride the ox. I reach home, I am serene. The ox too can rest. The dawn has come in blissful... Okay, that's the other one. Ox forgotten, self alone. Okay, so you go from riding the ox to forgetting the ox. In the Dharma, there is no two-ness. The ox is his primal nature. All right, so you unify with the ox, which I guess represents mind. A trap is no longer needed when a rabbit is to be caught. All right, so you don't need the method anymore. You've caught the rabbit, you don't need the net. You don't need the trap. The net is useless if you've caught the fish. So that's the picture with the man sitting outside his house, and his the rope and the whip that he used to catch the ox are now hanging from the wall. The 8th ox herding picture is both bull and self transcended. So the bull, the person catching the bull, your soul catching mind, and the methodology, the whip, merge together into a oneness in divine illumination. So that would be our second hypothesis, peak experience of it. The 9th and 10th we are not looking at now, because that's we're going to look at that soon, because that's our question: is there something beyond the first hypothesis? But the point is, these are all about the second. From a glimpse to the second, to complete union with the second. This is our spiritual evolution in the ox herding pictures, the closest thing to a map. Now, there is lots more to explore in the ox herding pictures, and we will get into that soon. But the point is, to awaken to the hero's journey, or the philosophical journey, or our purpose, requires people to either have... Oh, shit. Either have a glimpse or be open to it. So for some of these 6 hypothesis people, their love of understanding is sufficient for them to get into it. They can be convinced with understanding alone without yet having a spiritual experience. It will come. It will come. For others, the glimpse is necessary before they get into the understanding. But it's 2 and 3 together. That's the point. The goal is the first, but 2 and 3 is the method. Just as what we've been reading is to win the war against conservatism and the extinction of our planet is to demonstrate which ideas benefit the development and growth of the soul, because death and destruction sweep across the land when the other is in charge. And that involves reasoning through words. There's your third hypothesis. That sixth people, the best kind of pathologos, or the most common state of mind of the best people among us, can participate in, as well as appealing to the kind of experience that comes along with an encounter with intelligence. That's what they haven't had or are opposed to, or have had and dismissed, ignored, rejected, mocked, exiled, killed. They're going through stages of interpretation or rejection of it. That's it, the second hypothesis. And of course, when reasoning, third hypothesis, brings with it a quietness of mind, second hypothesis, that one can drop away everything, even that peak experience of intelligence, to see what sees. Then sight opens itself up to itself, the self. Just as for the numbnuts, drowning oneself in empty phrases breeds chaos. The shapes and colors people. So there's our sight opening, everything drops away to see what sees. Sight opens itself up to itself, the self. There's our first hypothesis. So, second level of interpretation. So what's the analogy do? Same relationship, different terms. As above, so below. The principle of analogy, but also what allows us to learn. How does that relate to the second level of interpretation? Well, we've seen that the second level of interpretation is you're accepting this new truth, but you're trying to unify it with the old, which is similar to the second hypothesis, which is a unity of whole and part, or unity of ox, whip, man, mind, soul, dialectic. The unity experience, or oneness. What does the sixth do? I'm open to understanding. But can we unify it with the idea of beliefs? Can we say I believe in understanding? Or I can believe in what I know? What's that? Without recognizing there are different dimensions of reality, you don't acknowledge that the cognitive functions have different objects. So you confuse those cognitive functions. Knowing is not knowing how many beings there are in China. It's knowing intelligence itself. Understanding isn't understanding how to meet all human physical needs by theories. It's understanding that experience. These two cognitive functions have a different object, that's being. If you don't recognize that by acknowledging that thing your pathologos rejects, a higher dimension of reality, if you don't acknowledge that exists, you can't allow there to be different objects that are perceived. If you don't do that, you won't recognize that the human cause of problems is belief. All belief. Because belief is on the physical world. It's the cause of our shapes and colors image thinking. It's a pseudo whole. It's an imitation of that thing that you don't think exists yet. So those people don't want to say all religion is bad. All belief is bad. Maybe sweet Aunt Betty at the end of the street who has 84 crosses in her living room, maybe her religious beliefs are fine because she's not hurting anyone. She's hurting herself. She's hurting her daughter, who she says is less because the Bible says women are cattle or bullshit. She doesn't have power over others, but if she did, she'd hurt them too. Oh, and when a Christo-fascist like Trump comes to power, who do you think votes for Trump? Dear old Grandma Betty, whose beliefs we should allow to exist because it doesn't hurt anyone. It does. That's so difficult for these best of us to see until they acknowledge that belief is a cognitive function that has a different object to knowing and understanding. They might not even recognize that belief and understanding are completely different ways of apprehending. Therefore, they will never solve human problems, which are caused by belief. If they're trying to, what's the second level of interpretation? Keep the new and the old. Now, that's not to say we are going to hurt people with beliefs. They are already suffering. We don't hurt anyone. We help people. But to say, oh no, it's impolite to say that someone with cancer is less than a healthy body. It isn't. It's necessary to acknowledge the problem they have so you can help cure their cancer if you're a doctor. Equally so, for these good sorts of people, sixth hypothesis problem people, they want to help people because they participate in the third. What's third? Providence. What's providence? Intelligence, logos, and care. They are the best of us because they are most open to third hypothesis, care, and intelligence, good heart, good head, providence. Therefore, that's why they're the best people to talk to. They are going to be the most open to the logos. Equally so, the most common problem in our world, seventh hypothesis, the most common belief shared by human beings at this stage of development, is the worst because it opposes providence. It opposes intelligence and care. These are the murderers and sadists, whereas sixth hypothesis are the best of us. But as well-meaning as they are, so long as they don't acknowledge in some way the existence, either through understanding, third, or direct experience, second, unless they acknowledge that, they won't be able to solve their problems, they won't be able to solve human problems, they won't be able to reach their highest excellence and purpose, and they won't be able to help others do the same. They will be blocked. Even Emma. Therefore, if we want to be good people, we need to, as dialecticians, know how to communicate to the worst of all human beings, not just human beings, any intelligent species who've reached this level of development. Seventh hypothesis problem people, kill the people unlike me. And sixth, and the best of us, sixth hypothesis problem people. Can we talk to, and that's our things over here. Can we talk to, as a standard for our own excellence, can we talk to the worst among us, which is understanding where we are in the text, because Socrates is trying to reason with Jesus about his idea that the world is a battleground between evil and good. And all you can do is kill the bad guys, which is anyone, which is everyone. That brings in Armageddon. Seventh hypothesis. How can we talk to the worst people with the worst problems? And they're not worst people in nature, they're worst people in functioning. That's how we understand who is better and worse, how they function. They are murdering people, genociding people, torturing people. for pleasure and profit. They will bring in Armageddon. They are saying they want to bring in Armageddon. Seventh hypothesis, how can we talk to the worst of us with the worst problems? Next, we need to help good people. So this is the standard for the dialectic. Can we also talk to people whose problems are the sixth hypothesis? They're open to reason, principles, understanding. They have a good heart and good head, but they're opposed to there being a higher reality than the physical world that's knowable and is the paradigm for truth, justice, reality, and all of the other things we use in understanding. Whole, part, same, different, etc. Goodness, excellence. They're the best of us. Similar dialectic with the best of souls, open to love, understanding, or a love of understanding. Who are open to or love understanding. Good heart, good head. The best of us, and the seventh, the worst of us. That's our standard for a dialectician. So, sixth hypothesis, similar to the second interpretation, trying to keep both. You're interested in reason and understanding. Have you addressed the beliefs you carry? You haven't. Time to do that, maybe. Freeing yourself up for further development beyond the sixth. By the way, you see that understanding is important? And conservative belief, racist belief, sexist belief, they're all hard. What about all beliefs? Not dear old Aunt Betty. They're trying to unify both. Keep the new and keep the old. This is why we didn't defeat the Nazis. That's why Nazis are in power again, doing Nazi shit. We haven't addressed the underlying false belief behind Nazism. So it still remains. We don't know how to solve problems until we move out of the sixth. Now, what kind of movements are possible? Socrates in the book, and we should read that soon, talks about, hey, if you understand the sixth sufficiently, you will show the necessity. Take your position. You're open to reason, understanding, and principles. You just don't think there's a higher level of reality as the standard. Okay, fine. Where do they come from? Is there a cause of causes? How are you able to perceive them? Physically, have you ever seen a cause? Or do you infer it with mind? What's mind? Where does that exist? Can you know it completely? So there are many different ways in which you can address a sixth hypothesis person. The best of us. Now, in principle, anyone can become open to the philosophy, provided they have the courage and integrity to seek their excellence fully and address their problems through philosophical midwifery and dream analysis. Anyone, even a nihilist, has enough logos and ousia to keep that problem alive. That can be utilized in philosophical midwifery and dream analysis to surface their problems, gain insight into the logos, in the activity of the logos, and develop. It's just that it's easier and more likely for sixth hypothesis states of mind. They're the best of us. Now, my lighting is shit. When it comes morning time, when the sun comes up bright, my lighting becomes really bad. Ignore that. Can I adjust something here? Okay. All right, so if they are open to it, either through having an experience or reasoning, what makes the difference? So what we're seeing is, oh, exile. Exile is a funny one because I was exiled from Emma's chat. I sent an email to the Facebook group. That's the only email that I could find saying, but they haven't replied and they haven't done anything about their problem. So, you know, maybe someone who knows them can say, hey, you've got a problem with your chat. Do something about it. Exiled. So, exile people who, hey, makes sense, doesn't it? A sixth hypothesis person is open to understanding. So they're not going to threaten or mock them for participating in understanding, but they can kick them out. Oh, those arguments I'm not going to pay attention to. Get out of town. Get out of here. I want to take the ideas of understanding that also allow me to keep my own beliefs here. And all this stuff I can just ignore. Or exile, kick out from the argument. Is there, therefore, a hypothesis that is in opposition to self? All of these are in opposition to self because any of these positions prevent you from participating in the positive hypotheses in some way. Therefore, they are all categories of pathologos, so we could say, yes, they're just as the positive hypotheses have a ruling term self-logos, and if you're participating in the self-logos, you can participate in all 5 of them as you move through in your evolution. So too, you are blocked from your evolution by the 10th hypothesis, which opposes the self-logos. You can't reach your goal. That's the stakes. You can't solve problems, collectively or individually. You can't reach your goal. You can't solve problems and you can't reach excellence. That's the stakes for those 6 hypothesis people that we hopefully can talk to. You can't oppose any one of these. You can't oppose the shapes and colors image thinking that you have that keep you trapped to your problems. Ninth hypothesis. You can't oppose holes in the physical world. Some actual, while belief is crap, you can't oppose the existence of belief. Otherwise, how will you solve the root cause of human problems? Be they capitalism or your individual problems. God, my lighting is a shit. Why is it so crap? Stop complaining about the lighting. You also can't oppose holes in the physical world, 8th, because whole of excellence and whole of problems are holes. You can't oppose an activity with others in the physical world, holes in activity. Because you need to participate in the activity of dialectic. Necessarily to grow. You can't solve your own problems. That's why you need a dialectician. Because you got blind spots. It's your problem. Third hypothesis, the dialectic. Well, it goes without saying. You can't solve problems and reach excellence without dialectics. That's the method. If you oppose a standard of excellence, second hypothesis, how will you be able to compare your beliefs about what's beautiful and just that cause your problems with a standard of truth? My mummy was a saint. Really? When she told you that you were less because you were doing understanding? Yeah, sure. Hang on a second. What's true beauty, true justice? There is no such thing. It's just whatever you want it to be. Therefore, I'll never challenge my family parents. My dear leader Trump. My dear leader Netanyahu. My dear leader priest, imam, rabbi, preacher, whoever. You can't oppose any of them. And ultimately, all of this is to reach the self, and what you're participating in is the logos of self. There's your standard and your goal and your purpose. Oppose that, you're not in the game. Well, if you're not seeking to know yourself, you're not in the game. If you reject the idea of self, where's your meaning? If you think selfless is better than selfish, what the fuck does that mean? Selfless? That's slave shit. Sacrifice yourself for king and country. Don't be selfish. Bullshit. Self-full is the standard. Knowing thyself is the standard. If you think your best life is in service of others, you are going to be a slave. You're going to be stuck in your life and in your further reincarnations. Let's hope you have a better luck next time. But if you don't do the work, maybe worse. So, seems grim, but doesn't have to be. Because the sort of people who are listening to me are sixth hypothesis people anyway. People who have given up ninth hypothesis. So these are all the categories of problems. You need to have one version of them. Now, ultimately, the pathologos rules is our ultimate goal is to know the self. Our ultimate tragedy, our fate, our failure is to spend your life contemplating, becoming more attached to, debating and defending the pathologo self, becoming more identified in that sickness that you're here to address. So how is that like the first? The first is our goal, non-interpretation. It stands above, just as the first hypothesis is the goal standing above everything else in the activity that leads to it. Just as the pathologos stands above all the kinds of problems. And how does it relate to our highest level of negative reaction? Killing. You're killing your purpose. You're killing yourself. You're killing your life, what you're supposed to be here for, by being attached to your pathologos, by being in these negative hypotheses. Even the best of us, they're still going to have problems in their death and their reincarnation, and even in their current life, unless they seek the self-logos. You are killing your reason for being unless you wake up to philosophical midwifery in the self-logos by addressing whatever of these four that you're in. So our ultimate goal is to kill interpretation, sacrifice interpretation, to kill or sacrifice the pathologos self, which is necessary because if you haven't sacrificed or removed or killed your pathologos self, you can't fully know the self. So all the way through the ox-herding pictures, there's the whip and the rope, the method. That's the dialectic. That's midwifery to remove this. But also the dialectic in midwifery involves reaching the truth. Both. So what? So by using these new 5 categories of interpretation and our 5 kinds of human negative reactions to truth and human speaking truth, we've gained insight into these 4 hypotheses. We've added a new one to understand what they are, the 4 varieties of human problems. After reading this book, we can get back into the orange book, which is the midwifery book, which allows us to understand in greater depth the pathologo self. But we have learned a lot about the pathologo self in this book already. So all of the stuff we've been learning about the pathologos, now we have a place for it. The 10th hypothesis, the opposition to the self-logos, the ruling term above the negative hypotheses, as the self-logos is the ruling term above the positives. So whether we are talking to a 7th hypothesis worst of us, as Socrates is with Jesus, which of course would be the culmination of this masterpiece book we're reading, We've gone through all of this work over 170 episodes to get to this point where we can hopefully know enough about the logos, the dialectic, and the meaning of life to address the worst kind of problem that Jesus is personifying, which is also the most common problem of our age. But also, in our efforts to establish a community, we have found that the only people who have been at least somewhat receptive to what we're doing here has been people with the sixth hypothesis problems. But also we can work out how we can see the positive hypotheses positively. So taking these negative hypotheses, we are understanding ignorance, a kind of false belief and an opposition to our own mind and development, fourth and fifth. But if we didn't take those positions literally, but approach them with the self-logos, how can we do those 5 hypotheses properly? That's the game. So once we've worked through our 5 negative interpretations to truth, and we're just like, hey, fuck it, I'm just going to accept truth and put aside or let go of my negative reactions to a new truth that's different than what I'm used to. For now, I'm going to put aside my desire to ignore Jed or ignore the book or ignore Socrates, mock him, threaten him, exile him, or kill him, at least for now, so I can be open to at least seeing if there's any legitimacy to what the greatest minds of human history, Homer, Parmenides, Socrates, Pierre Grimes, have been saying, Diotima. I don't know if it's true, but it seems to be the most rational, and these seem to be the best human beings ever to walk the planet. I might give it a shot. They might be smarter than my president, priest, or parent. Maybe. And if they're not, I'll ask for my money back. And if they are, maybe I'll pay it forward. So how can we participate with the self-logos? Let's go back to these positive hypotheses. So, in the physical world, we're not opposed to the 5th anymore. We're okay with it. We've got out of the 9th hypothesis, state of mind. We can be a part in the physical world, pursuing our image thinking, opposing our mind or development. We can be a single person, not unified with all of reality and self yet, going through our life dramas, opposing our benefit, causing problems. We can be a pregnant party in philosophical midwifery and dream analysis. The greatest human activity that everyone is literally here to do and master. We can finally be open to it as the 5th hypothesis. We recognize I'm doing image thinking. I see that sexy woman and I get scared. I see that she's going to reject me. I see that black person and I get angry because something from my childhood. I see the math exam and I get sleepy. I am reacting with shapes and colors or image thinking in opposition to my own benefit. I have a problem. I have a problem and I keep having that problem and I don't know how to get out of it. That is where you want to be. So being in the 5th hypothesis isn't a bad thing, so long as you can be open, receptive, curious to understanding and insight, to the dialectic. It's where you want to be. 5th hypothesis, you're on the chair. The chair in a midwifery talk. By the blackboard if it's with a group, or on a coffee table if you're having coffee with someone. Buy me a coffee, I'll give you a midwife talk. If you're lucky enough to have someone like this as a partner in your life, over eggs and breakfast. That's not fifth hypothesis as a pathologos. I'm attached to the fifth. I have my problems and I'm always going to have my problems and I'm going to just kill everyone that's different and hopefully inflict my problems onto others. Yes, that's me, fifth hypothesis. There is no God, there is no reality, and we can't know it, and everything is just bad. Don't do philosophy, you idiots. Socrates is a jerk. That's a pathologos. Fifth hypothesis having a problem is human. Attached to it fervently is a problem. That problem is a puzzle with the dialectic. Turns problems into puzzles. When you turn it into a puzzle, you realize every problem was a kind of solution that worked at some level in the past in some way that no longer applies. So it's not a punishment game. That's seventh hypothesis, sadism. Punishment, cruelty, blame, that's seventh hypothesis, sickness. We don't do that here because we are good people. So that's how you can be fifth hypothesis in a good way compared to in a bad way when you're attached, reflecting. So fifth hypothesis is an opposition, a denial of our participation. The way you can deny your development is 9th, 8th, 7th, and 6th. Fourth hypothesis is your unsuspected allegiance and false belief about self, character maxing.
Personality maxing requires you to look inward on a deeper level, and it's harder to fix because then you have to make fundamental changes to who you are as a person. And it's because it feels like a much more core component of themselves that they don't want to change. Like, it's like, well, then if I change this, who am I?
Who am I? Who am I? And then I hit the reverb and the delay and I say, who am I? Who am I? Thank you, Oracle, once again. So, the cause of human problems is fourth hypothesis. As your self-identity, character, personality maxing, state of mind, functioning, that's the pathologos. So the 10th hypothesis functions as a problem in the fourth hypothesis. For humans, or any intelligent species at this stage of development. How do we participate in the fourth? We're already fifth hypothesis on the seat, but we are open to reflecting on the beliefs that we carry that are the cause of our ignorance and problems, making use of the pseudo-ousia in philosophical midwifery. I want to explore my beliefs. I want to know why I believe I suck. I want to know why I believe I can't fix a lawnmower. I want to know why I believe no one will love me. I want to know why I believe this shit that I didn't even know I believe, I just think is true. I'm open to the existence of belief. Number one. Number two. Eighth hypothesis says there are physical things, but there are no physical wholes. There are no meaningful wholes. Problems are... To participate in the fourth hypothesis properly with the self-logos and dialectic is to recognize problems exist as a whole in the physical world. They are intelligible, understandable as a whole of parts in principle. The parts that you live out in the daily problems of your relationship, your fantasies, your distractions, your tangents, your night dreams, they are all parts that can be put into a whole, meaning your problem is singular. You have one problem as a whole, meaning it's understandable, meaning it's solvable. Human problems are solvable in principle. That's participating in the fourth hypothesis in the correct way. Therefore, even the best people in the world who haven't yet awoken to midwifery, in the sixth hypothesis, the Emmas of the world, who are open to reason and principles and addressing causes and stuff, have to be open to the positive hypothesis. We have to talk to them, have to help them address their problem in some way that they're open to this, so they can see problems aren't to be voted out or shot at if defeating the Nazis, or voted out to defeat the Republicans. They have to be understood and solved. If you want a better world, there are two kinds of holes you have to admit exists in the fourth hypothesis: our problems and our excellence. There is a standard of excellence that can function as a whole in how we live together as a community, as a society, as a humanity. But also, as we seek that excellence as a whole, that's not enough. It won't work. We see today the most cruel and sadistic people have been meditating their whole lives on their cruelty, on their capitalism, on their money, on their religious bullshit. It's not a matter of just being nice. The shittiest people will kill us, as they killed Socrates and also Jesus. Meaning, for the best people in the world who want to make positive change, they have to realize not only is there an excellence as a whole, a way of coming together as a whole in a better way, we will, at the same time, surface human problems. All of the fuckheads will come out of the woodwork. When we propose universal food, all of the Jews who hate the Palestinians will come up and say, no, we are the chosen people. Why? I believe it, that's why. When we say universal wealth equality, all of the capitalists, no, I am better. We are the Musks. We are the Bezos. We are the Rockefellers or whatever. They will surface. When we propose universal housing, all of the landlords will come out of the woodwork. When we propose universal dignity for human beings, all of the Nazis will come out of the woodwork. But that's our purpose, says in the book. You should probably look at it, because I haven't looked at the book for a while. Our purpose, or our destiny as a species, clan beliefs, is to surface all of the clan beliefs that exist within our species from caveman days. So page 128. Man is in a cycle of reincarnation because he is here to learn. And so that's what we're doing. We're learning the map, and we're learning how to help others wake up to that process of learning. Would you say that what man must learn is to end the cycle of all clan beliefs? There it is. Therefore, even the sixth hypothesis, people have to recognize that there is the 5 classes of hypotheses that can be participated in with the self logos, that the negative manifestation of the fourth hypothesis is allegiance to family clan beliefs, but the positive is to acknowledge that there has to be an existence of family clan beliefs in an intelligent species that is evolving to surface all of the problems that we are here to address if we are here to learn. How can we progress as a species if we kill each other? We won't be allowed the magic time travel and alien technology if we're just going to kill all the other fucking alien races because we haven't addressed Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk's racism. If we're going to enslave the alien races because we haven't addressed capitalism and fucking Epstein class. And we won't be able to evolve through reincarnation. As Socrates says, justice plays a decisive role. If justice plays a decisive role, there must be reincarnation. We can't, if there is any justice that exists, and we know it exists at least in parts, we know that we all want justice. We don't like it when the ref makes a bad decision. But if justice has to necessarily exist, and by the way, that's the second hypothesis, justice itself, beyond that, the justice of the self itself, the first, then we must be here to learn there must be reincarnation as well. So, our ability to surface and address all family clan beliefs, like what we have been talking about, how do we talk to the sixth person and a seventh person, the best and the worst, and everyone in between, for our own reincarnation. If we are going to evolve in a more pure, intelligent species, and we're still fucking racist, we won't be let into the club, obviously. What other idea other than reincarnation, says Socrates, can make sense of the vast injustice we see everywhere? Therefore, says Jesus, we are in a cycle of reincarnation because we are here to learn. Man must learn to end the cycle of all clan beliefs, and then go on with that freedom to know himself. What if before the next reincarnation, the soul is offered a reincarnation back onto something like Earth and says, no thanks, no more thanks, I'd rather not be reincarnated into Hades. To whatever degree the soul is aware that that it is facing a life where misery and suffering is its lot, then why not pull back and say no? Socrates goes on, we are a race that is here to fulfill its destiny, our highest intended purpose for all of us. The end is everywhere present. It's not a time thing, it's a when we're ready thing. To come to know thyself is to realize the nature of reality is divine. That's the opposition that the second... So the best of us opposes that idea of reality as eternal or divine. They oppose the second hypothesis. Our task is complicated because we seek other goals and have other loyalties. We are here to master our present fate, surface all clan beliefs as a society and our own personal ones as an individual. Sit on that seat. And to fulfill, master our present fate and to seek to fulfill our destiny, seeking the self. That's the standard. Therefore, you're not doing midwifery, you are still in the 10th hypothesis to some degree, which opposes the first. Oh shit. We're here to both remove the pathologos and master the self. We have to address the pathologos. Our problems we return to again and again are loyalties. There's our fourth hypothesis as a problem, to something other than our sacred goal. Our highest level of reality is a loyalty to family clan. Fourth hypothesis. The loyalty to any other goal other than the nature of... The loyalty to anything other than that goal, to return to the sacred source through the self-logos, is the nature of our problems. The kind of problems the race of man experiences is when they identify with the values of the family clan. There we go. What is this other than the transmission of the core beliefs of the family? And then what makes believable what is false? Or why do we...
People don't logic their way into stupid positions. They stupid their way into stupid positions.
Wasn't through the logos that we stupided our way into our false ideas. And then he goes on to say more about how we become identified with our problem. So the idea is those people who have a good heart and good head, who are the best of us, who we want to talk to, we want to help them see that our purpose is not just to create a better world or vote blue or whatever. It's also that you will surface all of the family clan beliefs that have been developing through our evolution, that oppose our development, that oppose the good, because that's what we are here to do as a species. You can't do one without the other. You can't just say, hey, we got rid of Nazism because we won the war. Nazis are back. You can't say, let's get everyone housing because the murderers, hey, what do the Israelis do when someone speaks out against the genocide? They fucking murder people. They genocide people. What are the billionaire classes doing when the Epstein files? Nothing. We surface the problems as a whole that will surface when we seek excellence as a whole. That's participating in the fourth hypothesis properly, rationally, as our purpose as souls. Going through reincarnation and what Socrates dropped, and there is a clue. If you don't do it, you will suffer misery. What did he say? Your reincarnation, if you haven't done your work that you could have done here, misery and suffering will be your lot. If that's on the table, why not pull back and say, no, I'm going to do my work. So it's for our soul. Saving humanity is second, but also important. So, we participate as a fifth hypothesis as a part in the physical world, sitting on the seat of midwifery. Not as an atheist or a materialist opposing that activity. Fourth hypothesis, we're open to holes in the physical world, our holes of excellence and our holes of problems, but we're also, so while the ninth hypothesis problem says there's no meaningful activity as an individual, eighth hypothesis will say there's no meaningful hole you can participate in. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. The midwife talk, the dream analysis talk, the reading that we do here, the reflection that we do here. So the ultimate participation in the fourth hypothesis activity. By the way, the problem of the fourth hypothesis, taken as a pathologos, when you think it's the highest. So what is it? A hole in the physical world. Coming together as a whole of Christians singing Kumbaya Jeebus, or a whole of Mormons soaking.
Goon, 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 goon.
Goon,
You
goon.
can be a gooner.
You can be
a
Listen and learn, morons. This is gangster.
This is gangster about gooning.
Gooners.
Unbelievable.
Gooners.
Unbelievable gooners. The problem is when you think that's the highest idea of self and one. Highest idea of goodness, truth, oneness. Being a member of a team. My team versus your team. Christians versus Jews. Jews versus Palestinians. Republicans versus humanity. How it's approached in the self-logos as properly, so it's not our problem. That would be the seventh hypothesis, us versus them. But in an activity of midwifery. So the reason we talk to the worst of us and the best of us is to hopefully encourage them to participate in the fourth hypothesis groups as a whole in the physical world, to participate in reading, real reading of the stuff we read here, or to participate in a midwife talk or dream analysis. By the way, you can't do one without the other. You can't do a midwife talk unless you're also reading about the truth of about the logos. And you can't do either of them properly without dream analysis too. So it's all three. That's the kind of activity. You can do that with a group. You can do that individually over coffee. That's two people. But to do that, because you are the fifth hypothesis problem person with a problem, you're participating in a group, fourth hypothesis, but a group means you need another person. Another person needs an art. Third hypothesis. So how do we participate in the third hypothesis properly? Through the self-logos. What's that called? The dialectic. So you're a fifth hypothesis person on chair in a fourth hypothesis activity with a third hypothesis dialectician. And there's me smiling with my arms up in a massive, wait, don't do that. Enhance them. Speaking of massive, I have to take a leak. Bio break. That's much better. A wicked piss. Be right back. Okay, play the sound. Whoops. That's not how that works. Try again. Alright, back to it. I got some coffee. And I cookie maxed a little bit.
I love this guy. It's awesome and it's gangster.
Because of cookie maxing. So, the positive hypotheses are only problems when you're addicted to it or attached to it as your highest level of development. If so, it will manifest as one of these negative hypotheses, giving us the 4 categories of the pathologos. Our job, therefore, as a dialectician is to master the first hypothesis, which is a return to the sacred source of self through the self-logos, but also have a mastery of the pathologos. It's both. And we just talked about that being necessary to communicate to the good people in the world, like Emma.
Spit on me.
Oh, calm down, Emma.
I'm just asking for some goonermen.
No, I'm not going to spit on her just for you.
Goon.
Compelling argument, maybe I will.
Jesus Christ, Emma.
Come on, Emma. Come on, Emma. All right. The hell are we talking about? Yes, mastery of the pathologos and the logos through the dialectic is our purpose. Therefore, we have to communicate to those people like Emma, well, that there is such a thing as the self-logos. Otherwise, how will they go on to master it? Now, one way of doing that is say, hey, it functions as a dialectician. So you know how when you try and share good ideas because you're better than most people, they are jerks to you or shout over you like on CNN? If you master the art of the dialectic, you'll be able to lead those discussions from your rightful place, ruling it, or demand a dialectician be there. Every news interview from now on, you must demand a professional dialectician to guide the dialogue. Otherwise, it's just propaganda bullshit and bullying. That might be a way in. Notice, it's third and second. We are making people open to there being wisdom, which is both that intelligible experience that they're opposed to existing, but also understanding. So it might be through understanding they can become open to it. If you can be in these positive hypotheses in the self-logos, as a 5th on the chair, in an activity in the physical world, the dialectic midwifery or reading, with a 3rd so there's you in the chair, in an activity with a handsome dialectician. That's the 3rd hypothesis. So you are mastering the whole process. You are learning what it's like to be on the chair 5th. You are learning what it's like to participate in that activity. You are learning the art of midwifery. You're also learning what it's like to be a dialectician from that dialectician, and also as you share it with your friends. If you're benefiting, you probably want to do it with your friends. If you overcame a big block, then you probably want to help your friends if you care about them. And by the way, you can't do a dialectician, be a dialectician and do the dialectic to remove our false images that are the cause of our problems unless you have a standard against which you can compare true beauty with the imitation. Otherwise, you won't know why it was believable. The appearance in the physical world of truth, beauty, justice. You won't understand problems without the 2nd hypothesis. So you won't understand the cause of human problems unless you overcome that 6th hypothesis block through participating in this, what we're describing. Also, the 3rd hypothesis dialectician uses that as the standard. Hey, this is what's beautiful. How will you recognize a problem in a dream or in a talk unless you can recognize deviations from the standard? Just as a doctor has a patient come in, he has 1 arm. Unless I have the model, 2nd hypothesis, of a perfect human being with 2 arms, I won't recognize there's a problem here. Doctors have to develop the paradigm or model of the healthy body through which they can judge problems, so too a human being who is here to develop, or a dialectician, must have the ideal of reality. The ideal of beauty, justice, truth. That's the second hypothesis. And by the way, our only opposition to that brilliant light of being inside and our mastery of the dialectic is ignorance. So the further you participate in midwifery, the more you're removing your beliefs and image thinking, the more you're making yourself receptive to those experiences. Reading, what do we read about? The second hypothesis, you're becoming receptive. Dream analysis, you have states of mind, low states and high states. Second hypothesis. So in all of these activities, you are becoming open to and receptive to second hypothesis experiences of reality, which is great. It's bliss. It overcomes a lot of fears. It can diminish the impact of your pathologos if you've experienced reality. The false reality, saying, oh, you suck, that's not going to be as powerful, which can help you in your activity and in your midwifery. Makes it easier to do midwifery. Makes it easier to pursue your goals, to function in excellence. To the point where you got no blocks. That's the goal, to remove or kill the cause of interpretation and not seeing, the pathologo self, or the 10th hypothesis. So, fifth hypothesis on the chair. So notice, you have an opposition, but fifth hypothesis people, like the Democrats or atheists or jerks, they think this having a problem is the highest standard of excellence, and they defend it, and they fight against anyone who challenges it. Democrats, we got these problems of fascism. Good, that's what life's about. No, we don't want a conservative party that tries to hurt people for profit, and the only supporters are the most brainwashed and manipulated people who are suffering the most. They're exploiting them for profit and while hurting them. That's fucking disgusting. We don't want that. Wait, there's always going to be problems. That's politics, bro. They think having problems and image thinking in shapes and colors is the highest standard. Just as the fascists think their own personal beliefs, my team is better because we're the Epstein billionaires. My team is better because we're the Jews of Israel. My team is better because we're the German Nazis. My team is better because we're the Elon Musk idiots. That's the difference when you take it as the highest. Even the second hypothesis, even that glimpse into reality, Taoism, that's the highest. Anyone who says, hey, don't you want to do some understanding? Get out of here. Get out of here, exile. Is there something beyond the second? Ha 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 ha, mock that. So they have these reactions. In any one of these, if you take them as the ultimate. So, their actual participation in the fifth, on the chair. Participation on the fourth, in an activity of reading, midwifery, or dream analysis. With third hypothesis, dialectician. There's Handsome Jed.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I aura mog you because I'm joy maxing so hard, that just
Sounds like your cortisol levels are spiking for no reason.
And that's me joy maxing. That's why I'm so mogging you there. Second hypothesis. Those are the high states we experience in reading, dreams, become receptive to, freeing our blocks in midwifery, and the standard and model for truth used by the dialectic that he is focused on as he participates, which is the understanding of understanding. So whole and part, same, different, unlimited and limited. Fifth hypothesis problems is there's only the lesser, there's only the parts, there's only the different, there's only limits. There's always problems. Never address the Republicans or Nazis, says the establishment Dems. Believers say, we are only these limiters, we are limited by our rules of Epstein Island or whatever, and we're at war with the whole, blow up the world, kill the Palestinians, abuse the children. Third hypothesis is to have your state of mind as the whole. There are you looking at the second hypothesis as the model, while you function providentially to the parts. There's your third hypothesis, ideal activity, the art of dialectic. Second hypothesis is the whole of all parts. All of the parts beautifully arranged, beauty. Most necessarily as they are, justice. The whole of all parts, whole and part. So the positives of both. And our goal, therefore, is to, with the freedom of our pathologos, the mastery of understanding and dialectic, applied to even those peak experiences, that's the conversation that Socrates has been having with Jesus. Can you go beyond it to reach the cause of all of it? If the self-logos is how we participate in it, what is the self-logos itself? How do you come to know the self? That's our goal. So, our question becomes, can we do it? Can we have that kind of conversation with the rarest and best of us in the sixth hypothesis problem? Not blaming them for having a problem, but introducing them to these 5 positive hypotheses in that level of participation through the self-logos so they can awaken to their purpose, remove their problems, reach their excellence. Can we also have a similar conversation with the worst of us, seventh hypothesis? That's the text. So now we have in our back pocket the significance of what we're reading in the text. Seventh hypothesis conversation. Notice true that this too as well, that this came up because Socrates was third hypothesis, talking about Jesus's insight experience second. But while Jesus might have had an insight, he has done no work on his pathologos. That hasn't been his culture, his tradition, his family way of being. Stuck in it. Therefore, third hypothesis on Jesus' second hypothesis glimpse. So Socrates trying to help him reach the first by asking him questions. Does even that have a cause? Which is independent, prior, and higher. So there's our first hypothesis. Jesus was triggered into his pathologos belief, fourth hypothesis. And he started opposing, fighting against the conversation. There's your fifth hypothesis, saying we can never come together. You and I are just different. We're always going to be at odds. But to his credit, he stayed in the conversation, which is hard for almost everyone I've ever met to be able to do. Even when triggered, they keep the conversation alive. Most people shut it down. So props to Jesus. Very rare. He was able to talk about his fourth hypothesis problem, and it seems to be his version of pathologos seems to be most fully represented. Again, you can move in and out of these. You're not just in one, but it seems to be most fully represented in the worst, seventh. The opposition to providence, logos, understanding, intelligence and care. It's a two equal and opposite forces always at war, meaningless bullshit, death and destruction, which allows for the existence of the devil to torment children. Therefore, punishment. Problems are caused by the devil. You can't reason problems away. You just beat the child to death, says the Jews, says the Christians, says the Muslims, says the capitalists, says the conservatives. So punishment, the sick idea in society of punishment, that culminates in Armageddon, which we're facing now. Facing Armageddon. The nuclear weapons of Israel are being readied to be launched at the Iranians because the world is waking up to the injustice of the Epstein billionaire class. And the Christians and Jews want Jesus to come back with Armageddon. Therefore, we are not just potentially slaying the devil, defeating Satan himself by addressing the seventh hypothesis, false belief, pathologos belief about Satan. We're also perhaps waving away, as Jesus says, the oncoming Armageddon. We might be able to put an end to or prevent Armageddon from happening. So that's the seventh hypothesis. So we've covered all 5 of these hypotheses here. We're covering the seventh. We've briefly touched on the 9th, rejecting everything, nihilism. The 8th, there's only physical stuff. Those are kind of boring. They don't really go anywhere. 7th hypothesis as the worst, but also recognizing what makes the Emmas of the world and people like them better. Also rare as all fuck. Because they haven't done midwifery yet, of course, but their nature of the pathologos is in opposition to the second. Meaning they're okay with there being parts in the physical world, they're okay with there being meaningful activities, and they're okay with there being meaningful connections with others. They're even okay with third hypothesis, reason, principles, evidence, preconditions, open to universal principles applied universally to meet human needs as a society. What they're lacking is understanding those causes, understanding those universal principles they want to employ, because those universal principles that they are seeking in their understanding exist as beings eternally and knowably in the second, and that's their problem. If they've experienced it, they've dismissed it. If they haven't experienced it in this lifetime, maybe it's time to. At least be open to it. At least in dreams. Or at least in principle. Through reading. But because they're open to understanding, maybe they're open to that idea. Communicated through understanding. So we've understood what makes the best of us the best, what makes the worst of us the worst. We've got the boring reductionists. A beautiful painting, that's just a banana on a wall. Dreams, that's just chemicals in your brain. Love, that's just serotonin. Boring.
Dumbass.
Fuck.
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
Bull testicles to them. 9th hypothesis, nihilists. They're the most depressed, lonely. They're the saddest of all of us. The lowest state of mind. But if we can talk to them, maybe they can come out of their state. And of course, 10th hypothesis, the new one we're adding, which is the pathologos itself. A full understanding of the pathologos might be necessary for full. Just as understanding each one of your specific individual ones, says Socrates, may free you from it because it assumes the necessity of the thing you're rejecting, so too, because everyone is here to address the pathologos self, that's why we're reincarnated, that's the cause of all human problems, it must be therefore our purpose, so a true society would teach this from primary school, to understand the nature of the pathologos, if done sufficiently, as we've been doing in this book, which is a fucking banger, complete enough understanding of the pathologos may allow you to be free of it, and that's our goal. That's freedom. That's escaping fate. That opens you up to being able to know the self, the first hypothesis. So we've covered all 10 hypotheses. We've incorporated the 5 kinds of interpretations and the 5 kinds of negative activities towards truth and human beings who share truth. We've identified the best kind of people who have yet to do midwifery and philosophy, 6th. The worst, 7th. Seeing that the 7th is the stakes, Armageddon, punishment, cruelty, savagery. That's our current age. Armageddon is on the horizon and the extinction of our species. That's also the end of the book, so we know the stakes of the book. We know that we want to be able to talk to the worst of us, 7th, and the best of us, 6th. to help people get into philosophy in the 6th, to help remove Armageddon and the terrors and death and destruction inflicted by 7th hypothesis thinkers. We have demonstrated, therefore, that the cause of all problems isn't evil, but is ignorance, 4th and 5th, and in particular the 7th. So by understanding the 7th, we can understand then why we have the terrible injustice we have in the world, and what's needed to overcome it by understanding the self-logos participation in the positive ones. Okay, did a lot of work today. Really good, really helpful, really important. And again, stuff you can bake into your soul through this practice, talking to your friends about, so you can take it with you anywhere you go, even in dreams, even in reincarnation, wherever you go. That's the kind of learning we're here for. Also, both solving problems and surfacing the false beliefs that, just as as we just said, you have to be reading to surface and seeking mastery of that reading and excellence in your life to surface your problems. So too, for the Emmas of the world who want to make the world a better place, they will also surface the problems of all of those family clan beliefs that we still carry in our species that we are here to address. That's our purpose and destiny as a race. That's what we saw here. Our job is to surface all family clan beliefs. That's our purpose. Where is it? To end the cycle of all family clan beliefs, to go on to know ourselves. Socrates continues. Therefore, when death arrives, all those who are capable of this kind of learning take what has been learned and nurtured into them. We just said all of this stuff that we've done today is learning, but we've been repeating it, reviewing it to nurture it into our soul, make it our own. Practice with your friends over coffee. I've got a new coffee here. Say to your friends,
Cookie maxing.
time for a cookie max, and they'll say,
It's not being crazy. It's called reaching a higher sense of being.
I'll say, yes, I'm having cookie maxing and coffee with you to reach a higher sense of being. Nurturing it into you. You take what has been learned and nurtured with you into your next life. Whatever is yet to be learned and realized become what is to be returned to in another life. In other words, if you come across this stream, if you've gone through this whole episode, you are very, very rare. And you have the potential in whatever time you have on this planet to do as much as you can. Otherwise, you'll have to come back to reincarnating into misery and suffering with ignorant false beliefs and hoping, praying that you come across another philosopher and you can wake up to this game. That's personally, it always blows my mind that if someone is able to have this sort of a conversation, they get to a point, they've had it explained perfectly to them, they've even seen that this is the hero's journey. You've been rare enough to listen to me. Not everyone does. Not handsome enough.
And she spit on him also.
And also she spit on me.
I don't know if you know this, but like weird dudes exist everywhere.
And I'm a weird dude because
Be a reasonable gooner.
I need to be a reasonable guy. And they go follow reasoning and they hit their block. They've seen that it's a block. They've seen that they've reasoned their way to a standstill. That they have accepted, they've seen something as rational, but they can't accept it. And then we make the case, this is the hero's journey. That's your life. Your life has been blocked in this way. You've never been able to overcome this. You've seen your whole life has been defending this false belief. You've been attacking whoever the fuck for your loyalty to your group. Therefore, you've been in a script. You're an NPC. You're a zombie. You have been able to see it because you got lucky enough to talk to a philosopher or a dialectician. Both, same. Therefore, the only real choice you can make if your life has been a script of your false beliefs up until now is how you decide to function when you have been called to adventure
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
By Gandalf in The Hero's Journey. In other words, you've got a problem. You've seen it. You've been in a script until now. You're going to be in script till you'll die and you'll suffer the consequences after. Unless you choose to do something about it. And if you've been up on a script until now, this may be the only real choice you have in your life. It requires courage. It requires character.
This guy had to admit that the people in his life who helped convince him to be a conservative in the first place, parents, clergy, other authority figures, were wrong. Not only was wrong, but lied to him, and that he fell for it.
All of that takes so much courage and character.
Courage and character. And it blows my mind how almost every single person says, fuck you. I'm happy with my ignorance, with a grin on their face, walking away as if they've won something. All they've done is, what they've won is, they've proven to themselves, established loyalty to my ignorant, sick family clan. I was a good Jew. I shut that guy down. I was a good racist. I shut that guy down. I was a good Mormon. In spite of all the best kind of evidence and reason. It's blown my mind my whole life, but that's where we are as a species. So, hopefully if you've got to this stage, you'll make the good choice. But Socrates saying, if you don't, you will have to come around and try again until you do. So that's Socrates, not me speaking. I'm not encouraging you. My hands are clean. I'm innocent. Socrates is saying this. Whatever is yet to be learned and realized becomes what one must be returned to in another life. Man as a whole is part of this struggle to know thyself. It is a cosmic dance of meaning. Here it is. That ends. There is a conclusion. It's not endless or meaningless. That ends when there is nothing left to learn. You can complete that journey. We've ticked all the boxes in those 10 hypotheses. And the race of man, if we do it as a species, will also end in a state no longer of man, but that to which he has joined himself. There is a higher race of being that human beings can potentially join with. That is no longer human, but that to which he is joined when he has learned what he is here to learn. Socrates says a similar thing in the Phaedo on his last day. I am joining better men that you'll find here who've completed their work here, who along with gods and spirits will be fellow travelers and guides on a much greater adventure. If you're a half-decent philosopher worth his salt, you'll rush to join me as quickly as possible. Sacrifice a chicken, sacrifice a cock to the god of healing. And that was his last words. Learning is a kind of healing, but also mastery of this art. So there you go, a destiny for us individually, a destiny for our race, and we've realized that just as we are here to reach our excellence, which is a kind of whole that we shouldn't reject as materialists of the fourth, we also unnecessarily have to do that to surface our problems that we're here to purify. So there's our whole of logos and our whole of pathologos, so we can free the 10th hypothesis pathologos and reach the first hypothesis oneself. If we don't, we are choosing cowardice, lack of character, we are choosing vice, because we're still in our problem. I think I need to show loyalty to my bullshit family clan because I think I'm a small bean and a bad noodle. You are not. Your teachers lied to you because they didn't know any better themselves, because they didn't do midwifery on their own parents and their parents and their parents, all the way back to the cave. There is an end, even to our race. And the thing that we promised we'd look at today from the beginning is this Transcend. Wall. Here we go. So, those 10 hypotheses we just covered, minus the missing pathologos, which we added. Socrates himself talks about, and we're looking at this now because we were trying to understand the negative hypotheses, and this is Socrates describing what it was like for him to learn the negative hypotheses. Let's read it. So Socrates saying, I grew up in that seventh hypothesis that we've been talking about, the worst pathologos. Early in my youth, I heard the repeated refrain that life is empty of meaning and all we face is war, death, and dishonor. Right? There's always going to be a problem, bro. Seventh. The view that was held was that there is a war between heaven and earth, between good and evil, that is unending, eternal. The conflict was not merely between these mighty cosmic forces, but it is played out in our very souls. Always conflict. You're always going to be sad. Make peace with your shadow side. Make peace with your dark side. That bullshit. If you join the forces of good over evil, you gain heaven. Kill enough Palestinians, all that bullshit. Or enough Muslims or whatever. Enough terrorists. With all the non-believers going to hell. This is what Socrates grew up with as well. Obviously, there was no place or role for meaning in this eternal conflict. No meaning. There is no escape, so the believers condemn all those that oppose them. I stayed with this early group, since at the time there was no meaningful alternatives. We didn't have Jed's chat on Twitch. Then I was drawn to music. I became interested and later enchanted by it. I found myself attracted to those musicians who were able to capture a beauty that moved my soul. There we go, the role of music. There was creation alive and present in the moment, only to disappear as fast as it came into being. Here I could see that some musicians had reached out and were touched by something wondrous, and this they brought forth into being from somewhere unknown even to themselves. There, as I said to myself, must be something few want to acknowledge. Here was a beauty that I realized emerged from a structure, a beauty from music, emerging from a structure that exhibited principles of harmony. Harmony, I hoped, was itself a reflection of some higher and truly existing order and intelligibility, what we know as the self-logos. Yet it was very dimly, but it might be dimly perceived, but nonetheless it was there to be participated in. It was impossible to carry the music away, yet its beauty lingered, the afterglow, on long after the last string was played. I knew then that since there is beautiful music, that beauty must foreshadow an intelligence to cultivate. Reading, midwifery, and dream analysis. There must be two intelligent forces. As I reasoned, Socrates says, one I glimpsed through music, and another more profound, waiting to be discovered. Ooh. These reflections were sufficient to end my kinship with the jabronis that I grew up with my young friends. Finding no kinship with this group, I was open to seek other views more akin to what I had found through beauty. So, he could have dismissed, ignored, rejected, threatened, all that shit, his own insight to return to a group he was familiar with, like those people that confused me I just mentioned. I didn't go back to my old group of idiots. I found no kinship with them. I was open to seek other views more akin to what I had found through beauty. Everything changed when I heard someone at the Agora mention that something that seemed so strange to me, yet had an instant appearance as something that must be true. A young woman. whose voice rang with integrity and truth as she said it. She said,
You sick fuck.
oh my goodness. She said, the whole of God sees, thinks, and it is the whole that hears. Seeing, thinking, and hearing. It's the whole of God. What an interesting thing to wonder about. I recall vividly it caused me to turn about and wonder if I could carefully watch each thought and each thing I say and hear. If so, I could discover what it was that was experiencing these things. Surely after these questionings, I could easily see what it was doing these things was one. It wasn't a warring God that drives a terrible fury within one's soul, like those idiots I grew up with told me. Awakened? Hooray?
Funny and cool? Hey, leave some for the rest of us.
Awakening, name of the channel. Awakened to learn more, I heard that Heraclitus had said, wisdom is one, to know the intelligence by which all things are steered through all things. This very notion of the one intrigued me. See, he's gone from the whole is God to more specificity. It's the one, but also it knows the intelligence. There's our first and second hypothesis. By which all things are steered through all things. The second as a paradigm. This notion of the one intrigued me, and when I heard that Parmenides was to visit Athens, I knew what course I must by all means follow. He came with Zeno, and he led us through his idea through which all things became clear to me. All of this was leading him to his encounter with Gandalf.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
Parmenides, his teacher, along with Diotima, who came later. Came with Zeno, and he led us through his idea through which all became clear to me. For what else was left for me to see than to see as he saw, just as we are trying to see as Socrates is seeing. That's what we've been doing this whole book. To see as the author is seeing. To see as our Dream Master sees. For what else was left for me than to see as he saw, to realize what he had brought us to see. His method was dialectic. Yay!
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
Scoop the moon in a cup for dialectic.
Making ice cream is a good and courageous.
Funny and cool? Hey, leave some for the rest.
Come on. His method was the dialectic. And that was enough for me to realize that to know the mind through the mind is to realize its very source. As for, what does that mean? The mind knowing the mind through the mind is to realize the source of mind. Of course, there's a next question about what is the one, or when reason is applied to even that experience, second hypothesis, can it bring a silence that allows to even that will allow sight to see itself, sight to be open to seeing itself? We read that earlier. Let's read that again. Yeah, I got it wrong. quiet. And reasoning brings with it a quietness of the mind, which was seeing itself, mind seeing itself as the very source. One can drop away everything to see what sees. It is then that sight opens itself up to itself, the self. Okay. As for dreams, they played a major role in my life, but they came after I learned about Parmenides. And then he goes through to talk about the five positive hypotheses. Let's read it. This is the section we're after, actually. Let's might as well read it.
Drop the attitude, man.
Sorry about that.
Dumbass.
God, come on.
You sick fuck.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, you can't say that to her. You show her some respect.
Sorry, I won't say that to her. He brought so through the dialectic, where learning is our purpose. You could also become open to dream analysis. Jesus asked, did your Plato capture Parmenides' vision into the source and nature of it all it is? In other words, can we read about it? Because you didn't write anything down, but Plato did? Yes, it's called the Parmenides. He brought me, so Parmenides, through his dialectic, brought me to see that without the idea of self, there can be no true philosophy. Ah, interesting. What have we seen today? The pathologos idea of self is the 10th hypothesis. It is in opposition to the self. We have to be open to dropping that from the beginning. We have to be open to knowing the self, even though our pathologo says it's not possible, or we can't, or we're not good enough, or we're a small bean, or a bad noodle. That's the first hypothesis, and its opposition, the 10th, the pathologo. In other words, we have to put an end to all of these negatives, all of these interpretations, all of these negative responses to truth. Without the idea of self, there can be no true philosophy. Philosophy isn't about being an alpha, or about drinking protein shakes, or doing push-ups, or gritting your teeth and bearing it, or making $1 million. It is about the self. That's philosophy. If you're not talking about the self, you ain't doing philosophy, says Socrates. Says Parmenides to Socrates. Without the idea of self, there can be no true philosophy. By bringing me to see through the dialectic, so here is our ultimate standard. Talked about talking to 7th hypothesis, worst of people, 6th hypothesis, best of people. But this would be the ultimate standard, to run someone through all of the stages, as Parmenides did to Socrates. Through the dialectic, he was bringing me to see, by bringing me to see through the dialectic, that what can be said of the one can also be said of the self. That's what we're after, the one self. With a singleness of vision, he guided me to see how the one self functions. We've gone from what it is to what it does, as the most brilliant divine luminosity, 2nd hypothesis. He revealed through his dialectic that between any two moments in time, there is a gap that reflects its outpouring. The self, so we said, the one that knows the intelligence which is through which all is moved, that one self first hypothesis, using the 2nd hypothesis, luminosity as the paradigm, does an outpouring of divine providence. 3rd hypothesis, whose source is the one self. So there we go. So the one self, using the model, outpours providence, just as we, as our ideal selves, would outpour providence through the 3rd hypothesis, the dialectic. So providence, intelligent care, the pathologos that opposes it is the 7th. Therefore, so Socrates is saying, hey, Parmenides helped me to see that what can be said of the one can also be said of the self. 1st hypothesis. but it functions as divine luminosity. One participating in ousia as being. But the one therefore uses that or functions through that paradigm and power to create each moment of time in the gap between each moment. The gap is the third hypothesis, or its functioning, the one self functioning through the gap, is the providence of the third. That's the logos, that's dianoia. Therefore, the kind of pathologos that opposes providence, intelligence, and care is stupidness and cruelty. That's why our current age, ruled by the seventh hypothesis pathologos, is filled with such injustice, death, destruction, hostility that we're just fucking taking for granted. Another day, another genocide. Another day, another capitalist billionaire. Another day, another fucking religious sacrifice. Another day, another child sacrifice billionaire party for the Epstein class. The worst opposes the best. And that's what we're addressing at the end of the book. Can we put an end to this with reasoning alone? So, a providential outpouring from the one self is the third hypothesis. And I was able to see that. So what was left for Socrates to do but to see as Parmenides sees? Parmenides is seeing this. He sees the self. He sees this. He has the self. Sees it. Sees sight itself. He sees what is there to be seen as mind. And he sees the providential unfolding of the logos. There's our triad. There's our threesome of self. That's our goal. Those three. That we can lead someone to see through the dialectic, but we also want, ultimately, we first of all want to see it ourselves. Socrates is describing his whole life journey. Isn't this book a fucking banger? There's an outpouring of divine providential nature whose source is the one self. He showed in a single stroke. Oh, interesting. At the end of the book, he talks about, with a single stroke of reason, wiping away the upcoming Armageddon. He showed in a single stroke that the wall of belief, so that's how it ties together. With a single stroke, you're removing Armageddon, says Jesus about the seventh hypothesis, but he is saying it's belief. It's a wall of belief. So all of those negative hypotheses are the fourth as well, belief. Again, only when you take it literally as your block. With a single stroke, the wall of belief, he showed, harbors all those who believe in that shadow of reality they cling to as if it's real. It's an image. It's an imitation. It's a shadow. If you cling to it as real, it becomes a wall of belief. Fourth hypothesis. A relief came over me when he showed that the dualism so many take as real is empty. So perhaps from his seventh hypothesis upbringing, he felt he could never reach the highest goal. Fifth hypothesis. But he got a relief when he realized that people take that dualism. There's a fundamental disconnection between mind or self and ourselves. It's empty. The dualism so many take as real is empty, since neither the one, first hypothesis, nor all that is, the rest, can ever touch one another. Fifth hypothesis. So he was not just describing fifth hypothesis, he showed how you could get out of the fifth hypothesis. That the fifth hypothesis that says there is no connection, we can't know, isn't real. It's actually an analogical message about the self, that the one and all that is, second, third, fourth, fifth, and its pathologos, imitation in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, never touch. Transcendence. It's not literal. It's a reflection. A very, very low reflection. It's right at the bottom down here. As a way of thinking or an idea, theory. These are all theories. Oh, and experienced as well. So, the 5 positives, as well as how you get out of them. By looking at them not literally, or not as a wall of belief. The wall of belief and taking literally, that's what we call ignorance. 4th and 5th. Belief and image thinking. He continues, this is what we've been after. This is what we've been promising all episode. Here we go. Indeed, he then put all that I had seen together in a way that I could not assume anything else was true. This he did by way of demonstration that showed, if it was necessary, that showed all of those 5 stages we've outlined, the 5 stages we've just gone through. He showed that they were necessary if, by denying it alone could exist. Showed that if he did all this by way of a demonstration that showed if it was necessary. He did all of this by way of a demonstration that showed it was necessary if by its denial it alone could exist. So everything we've been doing today and yesterday and the day before, those 5 are not only, hypotheses, they are necessary. If you deny any one of them, deny the 2nd, you're in the 6th. Deny the 3rd, you're in the 7th. Deny the 4th, you're in the 8th. Deny the 5th, you're in the 9th. Deny the self, you're in your pathologos. If you deny any of them, that denial alone shows it must exist. So all of these negative hypotheses that are the kinds of pathologos a person can have aren't just there to torture us by some cruel god or some trickster god. They are there to show, if we can fully understand these kinds of problems humans have and we surface as a race, each of them prove the necessity of the 5 hypotheses that are positive. There has to be a kind of ignorance. As self has to generate a intelligence, it itself generates the physical world, and we as human beings generate our false ignorance through shapes and colors. It's not real, but it exists in a kind of way. Necessary for human beings who are carrying a false, or souls or intelligence that are carrying a false belief can reincarnate into the human condition to get that family, grow up in that world of that kind of injustice, depending on this time of history that you're born into in the family, to address your ignorance, purify your pathologos, perfect the art of logos so that when you return to the self, you've got the art in your back pocket, you're free from whatever problems caused your your downward reincarnation, you're ready to rock. You're ready to go. So they have a kind of necessary existence. And if you deny any one of them, that denial shows that it has to exist. That's the purpose of the pathologos kinds, or the negative hypotheses, to prove the positive. Meaning, whether we're the worst kind of person in the 7th hypothesis, like Socrates is talking to now at the end of the book, or the best kind of person, as we've been mentioning, the sorts of people in the 6th hypothesis problem, if you can master the art of dialectic sufficient that the worst can become the best, the 7th hypothesis people, if they fully understand their position, will see the necessity for providence. Becoming a dialectician, the true best. And of the classes of people who haven't done it yet, people who haven't done midwifery yet, the best of us can become gurus, can become enlightened. The 6th hypothesis, which denies the existence of a true paradigm of knowing, can see the necessity for it. from their own position, just as the worst sees the necessity for the logos. Opening both the best and the worst to the second and third, which is needed for the best. So the worst can become the best, and the best can become the bestest. Or the worst can become the dialecticians, and the best kind of people who haven't done midwifery can also. Whether you're the sixth, seeing your worldview actually shows the necessity of the second. Therefore, you can use your love of understanding and now apply it to the second to become a dialectician. That's the real best of us, like Socrates. Or whether you're a kill everyone different than me, blow up the world, so Jesus comes back bullshit person. Your own position can show the necessity for there being a different kind of understanding. And that can wake you up to doing that same thing. There's a way out for the worst, and there's a way up for the best. And there is Socrates showing that he saw all of it with the help of Parmenides. So there's our standard for us as dialecticians. Jesus' response, really, you have done and seen what very few have seen, and you have brought it all together following the logos. That's to you as well. You followed along, you've done and seen what very few have, and all we were doing was following the logos. Wondrous it is. Yes, we say to that.
I'm joy maxing, okay?
And she spit on him also.
We're joy maxing and we spit on them also.
They're completely lying to you.
You actually are too stupid to interact with the rest of the world. You should literally be in a labor camp for the rest of your life. You should be in the mines for the rest of your life. You should lose the right to vote because you're such a fucking idiot.
Oh my goodness, the Oracle going hard on Emma for saying that we were lying. But we weren't lying, were we?
If you don't know, now you know.
Now you know. So, few have seen, but now we know why few have seen. What were we doing? Following the logos. What was it? Wondrous.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
There's the childlike wonder. In fact, we had so much childlike wonder today that we reached an even higher level of wonder.
Now we're getting into extreme Jordan Peterson levels of whimsy.
We reached Jordan Peterson levels of whimsy. Wondrous it is. It is good that we have come together and shared what it is that we are. And to you, it is good that we have come together and shared what it is to be a philosopher and a human soul or any intelligent being on this path of development. Standard for us as a dialectician, we take it with us as in our soul, what we learn and nurture. If we don't, we suffer the consequences, and better hope we find a philosopher next time around. So let's do what we can while we're here. And yeah, do our work both as individuals and as a species to reach our human destiny and join with that race that is no longer of man. It's on the cards. Hope you had fun. And I guess next time we'll take all of this with us to read the end of the book. Oh, and then we can get into the oxiding pictures one more time. Oh, exciting. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Whoops. I gotta press the music. See you in the next one.